Good morning. Welcome back for day 15 of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Before we go live to court, because I'm not seeing live feeds from court yet, I'm going to give you my thoughts and kind of a breakdown from what we saw yesterday before we get into it. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. I am just riveted, Ed. We are getting into the last day of this trial before a week-long break because court is dark all of next week while the judge is at a mandatory conference. So we've got a bye week next week, and we have a lot to talk about. I've had time to think overnight about this case, and I'm sure you have too. So we should just roll the intro and just get into it. I'm Emily D. Baker. Thank you for being here. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. We are getting ready early this morning, or at least it feels early to me. Maybe it's because I'm tired from this week of trial. It feels like I'm in trial. I've got my coffee. There's going to be cursey words, I'm sure. We are in for a full day, I think, of direct examination of Amber Heard. I don't think we'll get into cross today. I will be shocked if we get into cross today. I don't know. I will make bets with the chat or something. I will be shocked if we get into cross today, but she does have a much faster speaking cadence than Johnny Depp, but there's still a lot of incidents that we need to get into. And with all of those incidents that we need to get into, we have really a lot to cover. So here's what I was taking away from yesterday's testimony. And I came into this case without a ton of outside knowledge. I had looked at the judge's ruling in the UK Sun case, but I had not gone into like investigative research of the facts. The judge believed Amber Heard. I covered the ruling, and that's where I went with. I have seen stuff around the internet, but I really limited what I'm looking at to what's coming in court. I mean, now we have outside knowledge from the Mallory palette and things that are going on during this trial, but pre-trial, I really came in to look at this case as it's presented to the jury. And as I stand today, I am having a hard time with Amber Heard's testimony. I'm going to be completely honest with you. When she was talking about her childhood, it felt very authentic to me. It felt very real. I could feel the story she was talking about. Some of her languaging around it was odd, but as she started to get into these horrific instances of abuse after listening to both Dr. Hughes and Dr. Curry and Johnny Depp's testimony, seeing the photographic evidence that we've seen, I am having a very hard time with some of these because every time she says something, I'm like, yes, but what about? And I wonder if the jury's doing that too, saying, yes, and we've heard this. And that is the thing with going second, that her testimony is being held up against the testimony that's gone before it. And I worry that I suspect that the over dramatization of the way she is retelling some of these incidents is going to turn off the jury, and they are not going to be listening. I so far felt that Johnny Depp's testimony came through as much more authentic. I do not feel that her testimony is coming across as authentic as his did. And I'm finding that I am waiting. I need the photos. We've heard so many audio recordings. We've seen so much documentation right down to like, oh, here's a photo of lines of, Coke and a driver's license and alcohol that didn't look like whiskey to me, but whatever. You've documented so much. I need the documentation. If you've documented this much, where is it? And I'm generally not that skeptical, but I'm finding myself that skeptical here. So I am looking for the court feeds I am on are not picking up court yet. So I'm going to look for one more feed because we should have one more feed. So we should be in court right now, but I'm not seeing any of the court feeds. So I'm going to keep looking for one that is live because I'm not seeing them. I keep refreshing feeds and I'm not seeing a live feed just yet. So with that, we're going to be on direct examination. We are hopefully going to get into a court feed today. come on, court feeds. And I'm even on the ones that I don't love. But let me know where you're coming in from. Thank you to our moderators. We have we have chat rules here, and we do that so that we can have considered discussion about what's going on in court. And that is really the important part of all of this, is we are able to have somewhere where we can watch this trial together and have a real conversation about what we are seeing. So let me figure out why these court feeds, you guys are telling me the Reuters feed is live. Okay, I'll go look for that one, because that is not normally the one that I use, but I will go find it, because I'm not seeing my normal live feeds live, and that is really annoying to me. So let me go find that feed, and then we can switch over to the feed I normally use later. This is the benefit of being live, right? There we go. And let's go and pull this up. She's already on the stand. So the fact she hasn't started testifying yet. We've missed nothing. A very different outfit today.
Good
very
morning,
different
ladies
hairstyle
and
today. And the
I just want to let you know that today we're going to go till 5:30. So I just want to let you know at the beginning of the day that we'll be going till 5:30. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Did you see that face?
All right. Your next question. Yes, ma'am.
Today we're going
Thank
till
you, Honor.
5:30, and they've resumed court.
Amber, when we finished yesterday, we were talking about
we rolling.
the Bahamas and the yacht and flying off in a helicopter. I'm going to just
And flying
ask
off in
you
a
to take
helicopter.
look
That's
at, Michelle, if
exactly
you can
where
bring
it
up
was.
Defendant's Exhibit 1091.
Reuters doesn't have closed captioning, which is one of the problems, but I'll switch feeds in a minute. They're just pulling up an exhibit. All right.
I think that's 1090.
Court just started. How do you not have your exhibits? Literally, court just started. You've walked into court. How do you not have the first exhibits? Everything you're doing before lunch. How do you not have it in your hand? I am so confused. Umbridge, you're killing me this morning. Be prepared. You knew this was happening. You knew you were walking in. It's like getting out on a soccer field without your shoes on, going, can you hold on a minute? I need to put my shoes on. Like, what? Stop it. I am so annoyed. It's too early for me to be this annoyed.
Do you recognize this picture?
Let me see what picture it is. Do you see the legal team all looking?
I took of Johnny in July.
And Camille
around
Vasquez,
July
who's going to be doing
2013.
cross-examination, has her hand on the
Why
mic,
did you take this?
because you can turn the mic off and on.
Because at the time, I was already sensitive. I'd been in a
sweater
relationship with Johnny
today.
for over a year. Coming up on 2 years, and I had already noticed that there was this pattern of behavior changes with him that would make my life significantly more complicated or peaceful, difficult, or wonderful, depending
language
on what he was using. And I only could tell what he was using because I would have to look for clues. And,
Please tell us more about the Quaaludes.
He would pass out and, get sick and lose control of himself. And then people would pick him up and clean him up. I think she's looking to the jury. Fix it. And he wouldn't either remember, or he would deny it, or he would accuse me of
I will try to switch to a closed captioning soon.
Didn't. And there was no one to back me up. There was just his employees and everyone who had been taking care of him.
All the yes
versus
men.
My word. And so I started to take pictures to say, look, this is happening. This is, I understood enough about addiction to know that you have to hit rock bottom. Like you have to have some
She looks confused.
consequence for your actions or for your behavior if you ever change to get better. And it seemed to me like that was not happening. So I noticed a behavior pattern change, and he started to, instead of, fits of rage, he started to pass out a lot and fall asleep and kind of fall asleep mid-conversation. And it was just a pattern change. So I started to pick up on the clues so I could figure out what I was doing.
It's interesting.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Exhibit 1091.
It's interesting she's saying that,
objection, Your Honor.
because the testimony's been that her father was an addict and her father was an abusive alcoholic and an addict. So wouldn't
And Ms. Heard, and what is depicted in this picture?
Johnny Depp
Please
asleep
tell the jury.
in pants?
Johnny passed out on the island where we were vacationing. He had a bit of
Chat?
a stint of sobriety right before this.
Does he look passed out or does he
And
look asleep? I've got questions.
it started to change with his friend Paul Bettany.
Oh, I thought you'd
And,
never met Paul.
yeah.
Your
Okay.
attorney said you'd never
Now
met
I'm
Paul.
going to ask you, Michelle, can you bring up Defendant's Exhibit
I'm sorry.
1095?
I'm already skeptical today.
Talked about March 2013 yesterday, and I just wanted to bring this up quickly.
Umbridge is finally in pink. I know. It's happened today. Everyone's trying to look softer today. I mean, I've seen people passed out.
Do you recognize
He's in a
this
folding chair.
picture?
Yes, that was taken.
Before you go further, did you take this picture?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendants 1095.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1095 in evidence, you can publish.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, Amber, will you please tell the jury why you took this and when you took this?
This was after a several day bender, a binge of Johnny's, the 22nd of March, which we talked about yesterday, about
Girly, take care
he
of
tried to
yourself too.
burn a painting. He
Again?
was accusing me of having affairs.
Another
musician,
painting?
my ex-partner, and he was on these a drug binge where I saw him no eating, little to no sleep, and he would just use cocaine and drink all day long.
Okay.
And that would go for a period of
All day
time,
long.
and then a major blowout, and then he'd get sick and pass out, and then
It's very
feel
possible
really awful, and
that the jury might be
often,
uncomfortable with her.
including this time, would start
talking to
a
them
period of
so
sobriety
directly.
after that.
Okay. Now I'm going to take you to mid-July 2013, the Tokyo press tour for Lone Ranger.
We haven't seen her yet.
Can you please tell the jury about that particular trip and the events relating to Mr. Depp?
Sure. He was promoting Lone Ranger, and I had just met his kids at the premiere in Los Angeles shortly before this tour started. They found out about me.
Amber, I'm going to
How do
just
you
ask
know?
you not to go through that.
Sure.
Just take us to Tokyo, please. Okay.
So I believe we went from that stop to Tokyo with the kids, and he had difficulty with drinking in front of them. He was trying to hide it, and yet he was dealing with some stress around his career. I didn't have a lot of details, but he was drinking at the restaurant, and the kids were kind of
Were the kids in Tokyo? I'm lost already.
noticing, but not
Are y'all
not really
lost?
sure
I'm
what
lost.
to make of it.
Objection calls for speculation and hearsay.
Yeah, it really does.
She didn't
She
say
did.
what they said.
I'll sustain us to the last
Okay.
part of the
Yeah,
answer.
she was
Okay,
starting
please-
to get
please
into what the
continue,
kids
but
knew.
Don't say what they said.
She doesn't
Okay,
know
the
what they
kids.
knew unless they told her.
Anyway, Johnny became upset with me for judging him. He was, it was like I couldn't win if I didn't do anything, if I didn't say anything to him about the drinking, if I didn't acknowledge it, it got worse. If I did acknowledge it, it was my fault and I was nagging. And I get it,
This
I
is all
wouldn't like
still
to be told what to do either. So,
pre-marriage.
but it made him really angry, and the kids were on this press tour, and I was just concerned about them. I was concerned about them hearing us. Johnny
About them
screamed at
hearing
me
us.
in the hotel room, and all I could think were the kids were in an adjoining room. What if they could hear us? I had just met them, and I didn't want them to think poorly of me and hate me, not knowing what was going on, in our
'Cause
behind
it's not
closed
my
doors.
fault. It's his fault.
I just
10-4.
I remember him. It was name calling, and he eventually passed out.
Do you recall what names he called you? Do you recall what he said?
This is going to the abuse.
I heard at this time nagging bitch all the time. Called me a cunt. He even said that he made a mistake with me, and that he didn't want to. That when we touched back down, he'd get rid of me, and I'd go back to. He said some.
Wait, no. You'd go back to
disgusting things
what?
to me. I don't
Okay.
know if I need to repeat it.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's
that's
go-
literally
we
why
can
we're
stop moving
here.
up
You're
Defendant's Exhibit
testifying.
1090.
When you touch down what?
You
then what?
indicated, I think, that you
Finish the
passed out at
sentence.
the end of that. Did you take this picture?
I did.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 1090.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right,
Thank you.
1090 in evidence.
It's
you
interesting
publish.
again that a lot of her
Thank you.
testimony is about what others thought of me.
And where was
You
Mr.
could-
Depp when you took
Bridge.
this picture?
You couldn't at least orient the
He was
photo.
passed out with his head in the
in
table
portrait?
in the hotel room, in our hotel room, not the kids' hotel room, in Tokyo, on that press tour.
All right.
Okay, I'm
Now
going to
I'm going
switch
to
feeds so we have
take
closed
you to
captioning.
August 2013.
All right, we're going to August
What, if any,
2013.
discussions did you start having with Mr. Depp about moving in with him?
Yes, this was all before they moved in together.
Our hotel room, not the kids' hotel room, on that press tour.
Sky News is just a moment behind, so
right.
apologies.
I'm going to
Closed
take you
captioning's
to
better.
August 2013. What, if any, discussions did you start having with Mr. Depp about moving in with him?
This is all
Well,
before they moved in together, y'all.
After this, I was getting close to his kids, and he had
Interesting
stint of
languaging.
sobriety shortly after
I was getting
that.
close to his kids, not his kids and I were
It
close.
felt really good again. And
Just-
shortly
it's
after that,
interesting.
he started suggesting that I let him rent my apartment for the vultures. That's what he called the press. And he said now that we were like a known couple, now that it was out in the press, that my apartment wasn't like safe effectively for me. And I had a modest apartment in Los Angeles. And so he started saying I needed to have security on me, or we'd rent out the neighboring houses because of the vultures. And it was a conversation. And then that conversation evolved into I should move in with him. Always wanted me to go with his security guards, wanted me to have his credit card. Obviously, I wouldn't accept that, but the conversation about moving in became
She's trying to downplay accepting money from him, but we all know
hard
the
to
wine
resist
budget, so it's
because
it falls
I
flat
was
for me.
increasingly becoming a part of his life, and also loving his family and feeling like more stability would mean more stability with him and his struggles with drug and alcohol use. And I thought I would
That was odd too.
minimize some of the jealousy and insecurity that he had. It was hard for me to justify working. Every audition, every meeting, every script I got was a negotiation or a fight. I had to justify it like as if I was saying, hey, let's have an open relationship. It was, and I thought that would be minimized if I could make him feel more secure.
An
By,
open
if
relationship?
we live together, certainly there would be more security, right? And that was my reasoning.
I'll cover that
So
at the break.
you talked about still reading scripts and things. What, if anything, did you do differently in terms of pursuing your acting career?
I'll talk about that.
Well,
The
I've
two
always-
questions I'll cover at the break. And if you want to put a Q or a question mark in front of it,
I've always been
so I know it's a question,
really-
please let me know.
I've always been really independent, and I've never imagined not working. I've worked from the earliest time I can imagine. I come from, parents who
Colleen, I agree. He talked about the
worked until
opioids
they
a lot.
literally couldn't anymore.
He was
I
Very open about
never,
it.
never imagined myself having to explain my job or justify my job, but
Emily,
I
I
did,
agree.
and I am independent, and I see myself as independent. and
I am an independent
strong-willed,
woman.
and I had to bargain. Every time I'd get a script, it would be, I thought you weren't taking another job. I'd always say, are you kidding me? That's crazy. I have to work. I support my family. When I moved out to LA, I'd get a check for, a gig, $600 or something. I'd save half for me, send half to my family.
We'll cover that at the
I kept
break as
having
well.
to justify taking work by saying, I'm supporting my parents, I'm supporting my sister, I'm supporting my family, I have to work. And he would say, you don't have to work, kid. Let me take care of you. My woman doesn't have to work. And that sounds really sweet and really romantic in some way, but it became a real fight. Every time I got a script. It was what kind of, how
Yes,
I was
Carol's got
dressing, what kind of
sarcasm.
behavior I'd have, how did I have a sex scene? And then I started saying, no, I won't take the sex scenes, or, I'll take the part where I don't play, that kind
I think
of
some of
character.
this is true.
Or then I started minimizing the kinds of kissing scenes that I
think
had.
some
And
of this
eventually
is
I had
true.
to change the wardrobe that I could
But I
have in the
wonder
movie.
if it's
I
because she
couldn't
said she didn't
have a-
want to be
couldn't have a
over-sexualized in
sex scene, but
Hollywood,
that all,
and
was
that's why they were having those
it didn't
conversations.
happen all at once, of course. It was little thing after little thing after little thing. And eventually I found myself pushing as many scripts off my desk as I could, picking the ones that had minimal makeup, dress as conservative as possible,
Like Aquaman,
finding ways to
conservative dress.
minimize the scenes I had where I had a
Stealth
romantic
questions.
involvement of any kind. It was a constant battle and negotiation.
Talk about that.
So let me take you back. Did you?
She's not, which
as a
is
result of your
staggering from
discussions
Johnny,
with
who
Mr.
did take
Depp
a lot of
about
responsibility
moving
for
in,
his behavior
did there
in
come
his
a time
testimony.
that you did move in with him?
Objection leading.
It is leading,
Overruled.
but it's foundational as to time.
Yes.
Please, and let me ask you this. You've talked about penthouse. We've heard a little bit about penthouse appointments and suites. Could you just explain to the jury the different places that Mr. Depp had in Los Angeles and what they were called, just so we have some context here when we're going through all this?
It's a little confusing, I imagine. He had about, I think,
Stop
4
trying
or
to
5
explain how we feel.
mansions in this beautiful, border of Beverly Hills and West Hollywood. And they were all in a cul-de-sac, and we called it Sweetser because that was the name of the street. And there 5 houses, I think 5 houses, it could be 4, all, effectively he had the whole street. Then he had about
I
5
think he
penthouses
Probably called the media
downtown
vultures. I think
on
he
the
probably
same
did. We
floor
saw
of the
texts
Eastern
about
Columbia building, which you've
that.
heard
I think
about.
that's the words he
ECB.
used.
And Sweetser was, Johnny's kingdom. One of those houses was like a whole house was his man cave. It was a studio, and it was where he made music and hung out. And we spent some time in there, but that was effectively Johnny's,
I don't know.
place. And
Please
then
tell
there
me.
was the downtown places, and they were effectively empty save for some furniture and one of Johnny's friends, Isaac, who you met, and he lived there.
Are we having a
at
conversation?
some point before
Isaac, who you met, he called me a big
Johnny
liar.
and I eventually decided to move in together.
Let me just stop you there. I just want to make sure we're clear. Are we talking about the penthouses or are we talking about suites here? For where
Isaac lived
This is
in the
before he got sober.
penthouses.
Okay.
The rest of them were about.
But
pretty
she
much
was talking about
empty.
Sweetser. She just
And
said Isaac lived at Sweetser.
my best friend.
Her attorney tried to
who
fix
I
that.
was
Did you
very,
see that?
very, very, very close to.
I have questions.
Went through a breakup, and he very
Did you see her
kindly,
attorney come in and fix that?
insisted on moving her into this penthouse. And of course, she said no for the first few times, but he insisted and said they were empty, and he
You're
would love
welcome,
to have her
Andrew.
move down there. And
We're all in court
he
today.
very kindly moved my best friend downtown. Problem is,
Rocky?
yeah,
Okay.
Rocky Pennington. But the problem is, it's
Her lawyer
like
keeps trying to fix things.
30, 45 minutes from West Hollywood, where my place was, which we call Orange at the time.
Okay. So when did you,
It's
when
interesting.
did you move into the penthouses?
Interesting.
Shortly after he moved Rocky, my best friend, into the penthouse. So she
When
was
did you
one of
move
these
in?
empty-ish apartments, and
I can't imagine
And
somebody snapping
somewhere
pics of
around that
me and then
time,
marrying them. I can't.
I think it took me some time actually, but after that, I eventually agreed to move in with him and give up my place. Although that made me pretty nervous, to be honest. But we
He convinced
were in
me.
this relationship that was very serious, and we were constantly traveling. Also, as another part of it is we were in LA for a matter of days or weeks. I'd go do a job, he'd go do a job. I'd come back for a photo shoot or a red carpet, go on a location, go visit him on a location. And there was an incredible amount of travel and movement. So we weren't really, again, living the day to day that you might normally with a partner, where you have a home and you move in together and you have one home. We didn't have that. It was
Okay.
very different.
I'm going to take you to September of 2013.
Your lives were
What
very
you
different as
filming at that
actors. Weird. Thank you,
time?
Jamie.
London
B.
Fields?
Her attorney keeps
Yes,
leading
that's right.
her,
Okay.
I was filming London Fields. I just started.
All
And they're just
Did there
letting
come
it
a time
happen,
that you
which is odd.
became engaged to Mr. Depp?
Were you doing this and this
Well-
and this at this time? If you can't remember.
Yeah, it was difficult because in that role was a very difficult role. I mean, every
Yes,
time
she did. Minimal makeup.
every scene that involved sexuality or romance was like, I'd look at that on the page and it felt like I'd feel my gut tighten because I knew it was going to be an issue. But
They're trying to
Johnny
blend this
dropped
all
me off.
to the obsessive control that they had their
I gave him the
doctor point
script.
out.
I sent him pictures of what I was wearing in my wardrobe fittings. I sent him everything. I shared my script with his team, and the fighting eventually kind of minimized. It was clear I was going to do this job, and I told myself I had to do this job. And Johnny had to go to London, I think, for some pre-production stuff for a movie he was going to do a smaller part in. I think
Alex, this
it
case
was
is
called.
my ADHD fixation.
I think this was Into the Woods, is my best guess. So he dropped me off in London, and when he dropped me off in London, we had a few days
We'll see. I'll talk about that.
at this hotel that we first, consummated our relationship in. As when we were on the London press tour, and our relationship developed. That was the same.
You were
hotel.
very
We
comfortable talking
in
about all of
this
the abuse yesterday.
Same room,
And now you're
which is a
uncomfortable talking about
Johnny
your relationship developing.
liked to
I'm
be in
so
the same room.
confused.
And it was really sweet. He got down on one knee and said, "I want you to be my girl forever, my woman, my girl.
Her
I want
voice
you to be
changes
the rest of my life.
when
Say
she
yes
tries
to me."
to say it's him.
He
She's
said
staring
he
down
wanted
that jury.
to spend every
It's so awkward.
day. He promised me that every day when I woke up, that I would wake up and he would make me smile at least once. And that would be his goal. And, I looked into his eyes and I saw my future hope, like blind hope. I'm so in love.
She's just spitting words.
It was one of the most, I can't describe that kind of joy.
Her face
I thought,
doesn't read joy.
if
doesn't
we were
read joy.
married, then this is real. This is real. This isn't a thing of, this isn't chaotic and this will change. I had
How
so
did
much
you
hope in that
feel,
moment.
though?
And I just said to him over and over again, "Are you serious? Are you real? Are you serious? Are you sure?" Because he didn't have a ring. So I thought, is this an impulse thing? My experience, Johnny, could be very impulsive. And
All of us with ADHD feel
he-
personally attacked.
he said over and over again, be my woman forever. I want you to be my wife, my wife, my wife. I, of course, cried, and we had a wonderful evening. And
Who explains if
he
you
left shortly
cried?
after. And
I,
I
of
was,
course, cried.
like, the
Why?
next day I had to go to work, and I was I couldn't tell anyone. And I wasn't sure. Part of me was worried that he didn't mean it or that he wasn't sure. I just didn't want it to be an impulse thing. So I didn't
What, she thought there
want
would
to
be
mention
takesy
it. I didn't want to bring
backsies
it up. I didn't want to.
on the proposal?
And I kind of felt, I walked around for a few days like I had butterflies under my skin. And then he brought my dad out to London with my best friends. And my dad told me, Johnny has asked me permission for your hand in marriage. And I felt like the luckiest
We'll talk about
woman
that
in the
on
world.
the break.
So while you were filming London Fields,
Her face is gonna
and
change
Johnny
real
had
quick.
gone back to LA, What, if any, issues did you have with him on fraternizing with the cast? I'm going to ask.
That's
Michelle,
very
can you
leading.
Pull up Defendant's Exhibit 188, please.
This is very leading.
Your Honor, I'm going
can do
to
that
object
too.
on hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm going to, let's pull up 188A. I've redacted everything but what
And again,
Mr. Depp says.
She's telling the jury that she was
188A,
crying.
188A.
That's a mission
She's
against
telling the
interest.
jury, of course I cried when I was proposed to, but she didn't talk about how she felt or it just,
Do you have that? You don't have it?
it's just the way she's telling her side of this story is a bit hollow for me watching it. So it's a very interesting thing to not feel it. Normally when somebody tells their proposal story, you can feel their joy. But all I saw in her face was derision and anger, which
While-
is
while they're
fair, but
working on
then
that,
don't tell about
can you
getting
tell us
engaged in your
what
testimony.
transpired between you and Mr. Depp when you wanted to do something with a cast member?
So, as I said, he came to London for his own work and also dropped me off in London where I had to be for a few months to film this movie. And he asked me to
Right
marry
back
him.
into it.
He brought my best friends and my dad out. They left. And shortly after they left, my co-star, one of my co-stars, invited me to go to a concert with him and some of the cast to kind of break the ice. And I'd be working with them for the next few months. And I had already, I already knew I couldn't be photographed, even if it was platonic. I couldn't be photographed with men or women that other people could possibly spin as romantic. I had learned that, but in January, the hard way. So I asked him permission if I could go to this concert with the cast. And I said, Johnny, that he's my co-star.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Yep, different, but I understand the feeling, and that is hearsay.
Don't tell us what the co-star said. Just tell us what your communication was.
She
with
can't
Mr. Depp.
stick to what
Objection,
she's.
hearsay.
It is.
Her communications are hearsay.
Yes. She can't
Abstain,
stick
object.
to
I'm
what
not
she.
sure I understand.
If you want to press.
You don't understand the
Yes.
rules of evidence? It's her own statements not being offered by a party opponent, Elaine. That's why it's hearsay as to her. Don't look, woman. I think you've been a lawyer longer than I have, Elaine. I am very annoyed. Let's see if there's a side-by-side of the bench because I'm very there we go. I'm not going to use the audio of this feed, so we only have audio of one feed up, but Law and Crime does like to strike YouTube channels. So the judge is trying to explain to Elaine very simple rules of evidence, the very simple rules of evidence being that she can't offer statements of Amber Heard. She can only offer statements of Johnny Depp because he's a party opponent. Amber Heard is not a party opponent. I wanted to see her up close a little bit. Is this a little bit? Oh, this is frozen. That's why. What are you doing? Is it just frozen on her face? Well, that's not helpful. So if we have to go to audio to them, we'll go to audio to them when we come back. But this is a rule of evidence that is not very difficult. That looks like purple today. But it's a rule of evidence that's not very difficult. When you are offering the statement, you can offer the statement of a party opponent that's against their own interest. Johnny Depp. Amber Heard can say, Johnny Depp said this to me. Johnny Depp did this. Amber Heard can't offer what she said in response. It's not an admission of a party opponent, and that's why. And it looks like they're coming back to the stand, but it also looks like this feed is frozen. So we're just going to unmute here and do this for a minute. Don't be dicks, Law and Crime. Oh, I don't hear their feed
That
call.
if I accepted the
awful.
invitation and went out to
Nope, I can't do that audio. Sorry, y'all. We got to do this audio. That was painful. Oh, Sky News doing me dirty.
that the relationship would be off, and that I was
Sky News is back.
foolish,
Yay.
naive for
There we go.
thinking that
We'll come back to that one later.
people could invite me to a concert in a platonic way. I tried to say, that it was fine.
Objection,
that it was-
hearsay.
Yeah, I tried to say. We just went through this.
Isn't
She's looking to the
testifying
judge.
about what Mr. Depp said. I don't understand.
I said.
I'll overrule that.
She said, I said.
Please continue.
I
I
said.
said I was foolish and naive, that no one could invite me to. How could I be so dumb to think that somebody could just invite me to a concert? Why would they want to hang out with me? Obviously, it was because they wanted more from me, and that I probably wanted more too. I was basically asking for it. You're going to go backstage. What are you going to say to the band? And then I know how
Hi.
this plays out, and who's who's the other girl going to be there? And
I'll
how
look,
could you be
Lindsay.
so stupid? How could you be so foolish? You're more naive. You should be smarter than this. And I apologized. I stayed, that whole evening, I think for a few hours I spent on the phone with him, texting, calling, or talking, hanging up. He'd hang up on me, be upset, and then send me cryptic messages about my foolishness. And, I'm already doing a movie where I play this,
Thank you, Heather.
character where I was empowered. Like, I read the script and I thought this character was empowered sexually. And by the time I got Johnny's feedback on it, I had been convinced that actually I was just being used, that I was just being used. It was clear that that was all I had to offer, and I was too foolish to see it. And I had
Amber, I'm just going to stop you right there because I'd like you to take a look at Defendant's Exhibit 188A.
Amber, we've gone a
Is that
little
in
off
front of you?
script.
Do you recognize
Can we
this
please rein it back to this
portion
incident?
of the text change?
Which isn't
change
totally
to you,
fair of
Mr.
me.
Depp?
That's a little ungenerous.
yes, I do.
They're
And
trying,
this is on
she's trying
September
to
9, 2013.
she's trying to enter an evidence in the logical
Yes,
place,
it
which is
is.
fair. And
Okay.
Amber
And
was continuing to tell
Are
her
these
narrative.
statements Mr. Depp made to you during that evening that you just described to the jury?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendant's 188A.
Oh, we binged.
Any objection?
No
All
objection.
right, 188A in evidence as redacted. Do I have that redaction, or is that something you need to give me? Is
I
that-
think we're going to need to give it to you
Okay.
hard copy.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you, Your
Appreciate it.
Honor. And if I
I'm
And if I can draw
sorry.
your attention
She went to
it.
put on the reading glasses and had to take them off because she
He-
couldn't
he
see.
First
I
says,
can't.
I don't want to
I'm
make anything
dying.
an issue, baby, but I literally have been on the ground just 14 fucking hours from leaving your side. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then he says, you know what I want, who I am, and where I want to go with us. You know very well what type of fucking man I am, and yet you lay a gauntlet before me that you know is the very species of danger that will always attract me into a very tempting test. What's behind that door? Almost impossible to, I think he meant not take you on. You want me to roll the dice? This sounds more like an aggravated ultimatum than soft words that could help us make both feel better. Don't test me, please. Did he tell you that?
Yes, he
And
did.
what did you understand that to mean?
A lot of this
It was clear.
is going towards that
It was a threat.
control that
A
they
threat
talked
that
about
if I
with their
wanted to
DV
be-
expert.
Objection, speculation.
Yes, it is
I think she
speculation.
can say what she understood it to mean.
No, she can't.
Sustain the objection.
It's
Okay.
still speculation.
All right. Let's move on then to the
All right,
filming
let's
of
move on. Good.
Mordecai with Mr. Bettany in October, November 2013. Where did that take place?
In London.
Okay. And what, if any, involvement did you have? Were you there for any part of that filming?
For part of it, I happened to be in London already for the film I was just telling you about. And Johnny came to London shortly after to film his own movies. He did the smaller, I think it was a smaller role in Into the Woods, and then he was filming Mordecai after
was in
that.
Into the Woods?
So after I finished my movie, I moved in with him into his house in London, a rented house in London.
Is that the house where Ben King was? We want to hear more about Ben King. He
And-
was delightful.
Describe your experiences during that time period with Mr. Depp.
It was really touch and go. He was filming with Paul Bettany, and
Her attorney
there
asked
were days when
the island keeper,
he
is it
wouldn't
a
come
true
home,
Paul Bentley's
or they
never
couldn't
met
get him
her?
up out of
Come on.
on set. He'd be asleep in his trailer, sleeping whatever he'd done the night before off.
No, her father is not. Her
I
mother
remember
passed
he
in
missed
2020.
a few
though.
days of work that way. It struck me because in my experience in our job, you don't miss work. It doesn't matter how sick you are. You go. It's millions of dollars every single day they're filming, and I had not experienced.
But also, he's Johnny Depp.
Someone who could effectively just control the set like that. To that extent. And one day he didn't come home, and I was worried sick. I found out that he was in a hotel room with Paul Bettany.
Objection, hearsay.
Okay. Move forward, because.
When he came home, they had to carry him home.
Objection, hearsay.
She's
Did
annoyed.
you see them
I
carry
watched
him?
it.
Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Please continue.
I watched.
Cross-examination
Actually,
preview.
I was shocked that he could do it. One of the
watched
security
them.
guards carried Johnny like a baby into the house.
Really?
And I looked at that, and his boots were hanging over the security guard's arm, who had to negotiate getting through the doorway, carrying Johnny like this. And I watched this, his assistants and the other security guards shaking their head, just shaking their head, acknowledging this is how bad it is. And I remember
speculative.
thinking, this has got to be it. Like, this has got to change. This is it. And he was understandably very, very sick for at least 2 days, is my recollection. And in that 2 days, I had a lot of conversations with this team. I won't say what they were.
Yeah, because it's hearsay.
But I felt at that juncture very encouraged that everybody and myself were on the same page. And I felt encouraged that we were in a new chapter, that Johnny had finally hit rock bottom, and finally he felt like changing for good. And I felt
She does have
buoyed,
moments of being more
supported
believable
by
today.
these conversations I was having with people that he was close to, that he trusted.
November 2013, did you have any contact with Lily Rose that led to any
How is this
discussions
not
with Mr. Depp?
Going to be hearsay.
Objection, leading.
It is.
What, if any, communications did you have with Lily Rose
Still
in
leading.
November 2013?
Objection calls for hearsay, leading.
I'm asking what her connection was. I didn't ask what she
I'm
said.
going to sustain the objection.
She's asking a question
November
that can't
2013.
be answered without
What,
hearsay.
if any,
That's why it was a problem.
interaction did you have with Lily Rose without saying anything she said?
Ask better
Objection,
questions.
hearsay.
Yep, it still calls for hearsay. The questions are asking.
Interaction, Your Honor. I'm not asking for what
You
she
are-
said.
If you can lay a foundation out.
Yes.
Okay.
The judge
Did there
just
come a-
kindly said, ask a better
Did there
question.
come a time in November
It doesn't call for an
2013
answer of
that
what
you
someone said.
Saw Lily Rose.
Yes, they came to stay with us for some time in the winter. Yeah, around November, I believe, 2013.
When you said they, who were you referring to?
Johnny's kids,
Okay.
Jack and Lily Rose.
All right. And was there a particular incident that led to a disagreement with Mr. Depp?
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
What, if any, interaction did you have with Lily Rose that led to an argument
Still
with Mr.
kind of
Depp?
leading, but they're
Objection,
gonna-
leading.
Yep.
That, what, if any?
What if any doesn't just fucking fix it though?
If we,
It's still. The judge is like, why are we having to go over what a direct question is? The thing is, these lawyers are very experienced in doing depositions in civil cases, and thinking on their feet in trial is a different beast. I'm just switching to the other feed so we can see the side by side and the jelly beans, of course. Loving this tie today. Go Bruins! But you are seeing the
Did you have an
attorneys.
argument with Mr. Depp relating to Lily Rose in
Still
November
leading.
2013?
Yes.
Leading.
Can you please describe that?
She's trying to
Well,
lay a foundation as
he-
a time, but it's still leading.
I didn't, I was, these kids were.
Reset. Start
I found
again.
them to be these beautiful, wildly intelligent little weirdos in the best way. They were.
She's trying to
I was
That's
falling in
non-responsive.
love with them. And, you know, they were in my life at that time, a short amount of time, but I loved it. And I started to feel very protective. And, you know, Johnny's sobriety meant that he was there and then he wasn't. And the nature of our lives with the travel and work meant he was there and then he wasn't. And Lily Rose at some point had a crush on a, you know.
Objection, hearsay.
Yep.
And lack of foundation.
Yep. Yep.
I'll overrule.
Thank you. Please continue.
This argument happened because Johnny
She's getting
was,
annoyed, which is a reason to keep
I
objecting.
didn't agree that this gentleman, it was a famous musician, over the age of 18, spent the night at the house, and I felt protective
We don't know how old
over
Lily
Lily
Road
Rose
is
and
at this time.
concerned. And naturally, they were not my children. It's not my place, and I understand that. I know it's a sensitive subject, so I understand why Johnny got so upset with me. But
I
that
understand why he
and
got so upset
the
with me,
introduction
okay.
of the weed with his daughter, she was so young. I just felt protective.
She
Again,
slipped that
it's
right
not
in
my
there.
place. I understand that, and I made him really angry by weighing in on that.
How
Did
young
there
was
come
she?
a time that there was a family engagement gathering?
Well, we celebrated Thanksgiving out in London.
know.
The kids were there.
London's beautiful.
There
in
was
November. Cold but beautiful.
a stint of sobriety following how sick he got on set with Paul Bettany after one of his drug binges, and he
She did.
kind of
She
just came
did
alive
just say
again. You know,
that he introduced
even,
weed to
like,
her.
played a prank on me about having like relapsed when he hadn't relapsed. You know, it was. I started to kind of feel that with the kids being around. I did think that maybe this was it. We were on a good path, meaning to sobriety, that this was it. And our life was peaceful for a minute. You know, it went back to being wonderful. There were these moments that just felt so wonderful.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Fair. She's looking to the judge. She should be looking
Sustain
to
the
her
objection.
lawyer.
Okay. Take us to the engagement.
She should be
There
looking
was
to her
an
lawyer.
engagement party, correct?
Then, yes, come Christmas,
The objections here are strategic more than
2013,
worried about evidence
Johnny
coming in.
had rented
that's
this
kind of fun to
beautiful
watch.
mansion in Malibu on the beach. It was gorgeous. And
Why would you stay
he
in
brought
Malibu
my
if you're not
family
on the
out,
beach?
and his family was out, obviously, in LA. And we stayed in this rented mansion, and we're all together for the holidays. And one evening, we were going to his mother's house. His mother, who you've heard about, was older and sick, but at home being cared for. And one evening we're going to have dinner, Christmas dinner there with her around the time of her birthday as well. And my best friend said, "You should
Objection,
really."
hearsay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Wasn't offered to prove the truth of the matter, but go ahead.
Um,
Go past that. What did you do?
We went to Betty Sue's house, his mother's house, and Johnny proposed in front of our families in this big, surprise. He surprised me, got down on one knee, and I cried and hugged my mother and hugged his mother. And
This one
he
seems
gave
like a
me
happier
this
memory than the last one she told.
enormous diamond ring, and
It's interesting.
it was a nice time.
I'm going to
So
take
two
you
proposals.
into January, February 2014. You employed a woman named Kate James. Is that correct?
Objection, leading.
It is so leading.
What, if any, relationship did you have with
That
Kate
doesn't fix it.
James?
It's still kind of leading.
She was my assistant
It's
at
also
the time.
foundational as to time, which is just going to
I
move this
hired
along, so
her
the judge is going to let it
sometime
go.
in 2012, and had as minimal contact with her as I possibly could. So
And why is that?
You hired her.
She was
Why?
difficult,
Why?
troubled and inconsistent. She drank on the job and stuff like that, and her behavior was pretty
Objection relevance.
horrible.
She's
No,
already testified.
that's very
Kate James has
relevant.
Testified. And I
That's very
think from
relevant.
Bias. We can.
It is. It's
Go
relevant.
ahead. Thank you.
I agree that it's relevant.
Okay.
Because that woman testified and she's like, oh, she drank all the
Please
job.
describe for the jury.
But
what
why did
your-
you hire her?
What job responsibilities Kate had and how you communicated with her and kind of how that worked.
Objection compound.
It's fair.
Overruled.
Thank you.
We had minimal person-to-person interaction because I was hardly ever in LA. If I was there for a few days at a time. And
Humongous. The ring was
Johnny and I
humongous.
kind of lived in this insular bubble anyway when
You
we
guys
were
are so
together. But we would send emails, texts, and a lot of voice memos, voice notes. And, if I found that if I said,
Mama, it
"Kate,
looks that way. She was smiling
you
when she was
left
talking about the ring.
car
Interesting.
running with your doors open and your kids in the car on the street, you need to
Objection
move it."
hearsay.
She's not testifying. She's testifying about context.
Sustained
They're,
objection.
they're trying to say she's not offering it for the truth of the
I'm
matter,
gonna
but the
ask you to
judge
take a look at
doesn't
Defendant's
roll
Exhibit
that way.
209.
She absolutely did.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay grounds.
Well, let's see what this evidence is. It's interesting. She definitely described the second proposal as in a much happier way.
It's
Foundation
still
doesn't make it
hearsay.
not hearsay.
May we
Ms. Hurd,
approach?
did you, may I lay the foundation
Go ahead.
first?
Sure.
Ms. Hurd, did you communicate
Could still
with
be hearsay.
Kate James by email in the ordinary course of your business?
Yes, I did.
If
Okay.
it's a business
And
record,
I'm
it
going to
can still
ask
be
you to take
hearsay.
a look at Defendant's 209. Is this a communication that was between you and Kate James that was in the ordinary course of business?
No, the glasses
with
are
her
on.
as an employee?
Yes, it is.
So, Your Honor, I'm going to move the
But
admission
she's
of
still
Defendant's
she's reading
Exhibit
without the glasses
209.
on. She goes to read with the
Business
glasses on,
record
then she takes them off to
Still
read.
hearsay, Your Honor.
Business record exception gets the business record, but it's hearsay.
It's still hearsay.
If there's hearsay involved inside the business record, there's still objection to hearsay.
Why is the judge giving
Your
a
Honor, the
fucking
business
evidence
record
lesson on
exception,
hearsay?
I mean, I don't.
No. No, the business record objection does not. Lawyers and law students in the chat, I hope you are also screaming at your screen.
Hearsay can,
Hearsay can't be overcome by the business records objection. The business records objection, the business records exception just lays the foundation for the document. They're giggling. They're like, how do we not know this by now? Okay. The lawyering right now, the lawyering is killing me with this a little bit. But here's the thing. The business records exception lays the foundation for why the document can come in. The document itself wouldn't be able to come in because it wouldn't have a proper foundation. Foundation means where the fuck did you come from? It has to be verified where you came from. You can't just like grab something and put it in evidence. You have to prove where that thing came from so that you can bring it in. I love Camille's like, can you get me the note? Because we need to see it. Love this for her. She's like, oh, did she just ask for the rules of evidence? Yes. That's what she wanted. They handed her the rules of evidence so she could prove the judge is reading the rules of evidence. This is hilarious. That's what they have in this book right here that they are pointing out to Elaine and trying to explain to her why the business records exception does not overcome the hearsay issue. So business records lays the foundation for how it can come in, how you know it's true, how you know how there's veracity in it. But that doesn't change the fact that if there's hearsay inside of it, that you can't overcome the hearsay inside of it with the foundation for the documents. The documents could have proper foundation because they're held in the ordinary course of business, but that doesn't mean that, is this a little bit behind? Yeah, this one's a little bit behind, but that doesn't mean that it's not hearsay inside the documents. Is she going to try it? Look, they're all like on the edge of their seat.
Communications did you have with Kate James about your
And
issues
her
with Mr.
offering
Depp?
her own statements are still hearsay.
Objection hearsay.
Your Honor, Ms. James has testified.
It doesn't
Sustain the
matter.
objection.
It's Amber Heard's statements. How do you not know this? How are you confused right now? How are you confused right now that Amber Heard's own statements can't be
In the
introduced by
February-
her
I'm gonna
own team?
Jump to February, March 2016. What, if any, communications did you have with Mr. Depp about a prenup?
Well, after the engagement, but before the engagement party, I started to
I'll switch feeds at the break. I will.
I started to feel like it would make, I know that he earned significantly more than me, successful actor.
There's a lot of
I wanted to eliminate any doubt in his mind and in other people's minds. So I brought it up to him and brought it up to my therapist.
Objection hearsay.
Mhm.
She's just saying that she brought it up to her therapist. She's not saying what she said.
She is saying
But
what she
please
said.
focus on Mr. Depp, okay?
Of course.
You can't talk about
Johnny
you.
said he
She's
would
struggling
tear it
because
up.
she can't talk about her.
He said,
That's why
if
this is so
if you ever
hard.
brought one up to me, or if I ever saw one, got my hands on it, I'd tear it up. Only way out of this is death. Only way out of this is death. And I thought it's.
No,
I thought it
explain.
would be like.
There's
I
no
didn't
fluidity
care
to
either
her
way, but
thoughts.
I did feel that it would eliminate suspicion or doubt, and it would make things easier. And I told him over and over again, are you sure? Are you sure?
Thanks, Amber.
Maybe
I know you feel me.
maybe we should do this. And one time he said to me, he's like, kid, are you already thinking of how you're getting out of this? Are you already planning to get out of this, kid? You already planning on leaving? That was the same.
He didn't
it was around
say
the same
that
time as the
in his testimony.
moving in together conversation. It was
He said she
accused me
delayed
of
signing
having
the
one foot
prenup.
out. And they kind of were happening around the same time. I still had my apartment and we're engaged now. He was asking me to redecorate Sweetser, his main house, and kind of move into the
Penthouses aren't the main
ECB
house?
building downtown where my best friend was living at this time.
Wait, the best
while
friend moved in
the
before she moved in?
decorations and the remodeling had been done on Sweetser. And so these conversations were kind of happening about how to build our future together and how we were going to move forward together. And I would have forgotten about the extent that we had those conversations early on in the engagement if it hadn't have been for my therapist's notes.
I'm sorry, if it hadn't been for your what?
If it hadn't been for my therapist's notes, which were
Okay.
taken at the time when I was talking to her about this and my conversations with
Objection hersay.
Okay.
That's how she
We'll
remembered
sustain
it.
the
We'll move
objection.
on. Okay. Let's take it to March 2014.
She's already getting annoyed. You can see her face with these objections. Depp got annoyed with the objections too.
Yes. So
Engagement party.
it was March 2014.
Please describe for the jury.
We had an engagement party, and we decided that when we did get married, we'd have a small wedding, something intimate. But our lives were kind of big. His life was extremely big, and we needed to incorporate. We wanted to have a bigger engagement party than a wedding, and kind of get our guests in, our family, our friends,
Get our guests
and have
in.
a big event of it, as opposed to making the wedding something that was big. And so we kind of put it on the engagement party and had a bunch of people, a lot of friends, business acquaintances, a lot of family. I had all of my family friends and my childhood friends come out for it, and I even invited my therapist. It was, a big event.
Okay. And describe what took place at the engagement party.
Well, we walk in together and we took some pictures and said a few hellos, and then Johnny disappeared upstairs.
Thank you, Nikki.
In, I guess it's like a coat room or
Feels like
something. It was in a big
friend of the channel.
abandoned building that was rented out for events.
I'll go look.
And he had disappeared upstairs almost the entire party, I would say. It was kind of came down at the end when we were leaving, and came down once because he was at the time sharing drugs with my dad.
Objection.
I would have let that go.
Speculation.
I would have let
Lack
that
of
go.
foundation.
How do you
Speculation.
know that he was sharing drugs with your dad?
I was there. I watched it.
Please continue.
Oh no. The feed. Ben Chu's stuck. That's kind of funny, but we need to go to a feed with audio because Ben Chu is stuck in time. Apologies. Back to the drugs.
There was a,
Sorry, this is a louder
they
feed.
needed more, of course, and had to leave the party. My
It's a
dad
very
actually
loud
left
feed.
with Johnny's security to go get more drugs from
Objection
West
calls for
Hollywood.
speculation.
How do you know that?
They told me.
Hearsay.
Sustain the objection.
And they left to go whatever, and then they came back with drugs, and everything was okay in terms of the withdrawal symptoms, or
another
the,
feed.
I don't know what you call it at that point, but
She lived with the
he
drug addict
still
her whole life and doesn't know
stayed
withdrawal symptoms.
upstairs.
Okay.
And
Are you referring
when
to Mr. Depp?
Her
Yes, I
lawyer
am.
keeps
Okay.
trying to fix her
so
testimony, and it's a mess.
shortly after that, I tried to get Johnny to come downstairs,
This is so loud.
and he just snapped at me, just verbally told me to shut the fuck up. And I remember talking to my mom about the irony of it.
Okay.
We were at an engagement party, but that was pretty much it for the engagement party. And I went downstairs and entertained guests and smiled and took pictures and put on a face and, went about my evening.
All right. I'll take you to May 2014, the Met Gala. Could
they
you
get
please
the
tell the
date?
jury what a Met Gala is and what's
Meeting Elon
involved in
Musk.
that?
Objection compound.
It is, but we're going to allow it because I want to hear. Just
Met
kidding.
Gala is
That's
a
not
big
a
event,
reason why.
annual event,
The first.
celebrity event in New York. It's a fashion event, but it's just a major
Okay,
red
we're switching
carpet
feeds.
event. And you have to be invited, and it's kind of
Red carpet event.
a thing.
It's a big deal.
And
There we go.
you have
Much
to be
better audio.
invited, and it's kind of and we were invited that year, and I had already gone for the previous year or two, and this year we were going to go together. And at some point in the evening, we're sitting across the table, and Johnny starts asking me about this woman. He thought I was looking at this woman in a sexual way, and I kind of turned it around on him and said that exactly.
Objection hearsay.
I
It's
said
context, Your Honor.
it's not.
This is
It's-
context.
Sustain the objection.
Okay. Just say what Mr. Depp said then. I guess you can't tell us what you said to him.
What do you?
Okay.
You know the rules of evidence, Elaine. I guess you can't tell him what you said to him. Yeah, that's
He
how
was
this
accusing
goes.
me of flirting,
Okay.
and that's how the argument started. I don't recall what other accusations I was fielding at that moment, but typically in my experience with him, it wasn't just one. So you'd make a point, and then he would go on to a different accusation. But I remember that what started it is this accusation that
She
I
wants to say
had
what
been
she
flirting
said so
at
bad.
this event.
She wants to tell her
We get back to
side,
the hotel room.
and that's hard for
and
her.
Johnny shoves me and kind of grabs me by the collarbone area, like not really my neck, but top of my neck, top of my above my collarbone, below my neck. I think at that point when we were still in the living room, I shoved him back, but I don't really recall too many specifics. I remember he threw a bottle at me. It missed me, but it broke the chandelier. And at some point, I remember maybe this was the shove that I was talking about, but at some point, Johnny
Maybe
and I
this was the shove I
are
was
in a
talking about.
struggle in the living room, and he kind of like shoves me down on the sofa, and I get up and I'm trying to get him off of me, and it's just stronger than me. I don't know how else to describe it. And at some point, he just whacks me in the face, and I had not at the time been I think that was the first time I was like, is this a broken nose? At the time, I was unsure what that feeling was, but I suspected I had a broken nose.
Chad, if you've ever had a broken
And
nose,
other
you can
than that,
go
it was
ahead and share your
relatively
experience on whether you knew or not.
unscathed. But I remember my nose being swollen, discolored, red. And I took a picture of my face at some point and made a joke about it to my friend about how bad I looked compared to how the red
Objection,
carpet.
hearsay.
All right.
It was not for to prove the truth of the matter.
Yes,
sir.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay.
The judge sustains
Okay.
hearsay
Just don't
objections.
say what you what.
Yeah, I'm going to
You
say
told a
when
friend,
you
okay.
break your nose,
Okay.
you know.
Let's take you to
Said someone who's had a broken nose, you know.
the
You-
Adderall
you know.
Diaries. When did you start
The
filming
what?
the Adderall Diaries?
The Adderall Diaries? Is this a
I
movie?
believe May. I filmed another movie in New York, March, April, May. I went straight from that movie to another movie, an independent film with James Franco. The one I had previously shot was with Christopher Walken. That's right. Okay, so I went from one to the other
I'm having a hard time following her.
and saw Johnny in these, in between. Like if I got a long weekend or, I'd fly home to be with him and then fly back. It was kind of like that.
Fly back from where? Where were you filming those?
In New York.
Okay. And
It's hard to
where
keep up.
was Mr. Depp at that time?
Johnny was in LA at the time and then eventually went on location for his movie Black Mass in Boston.
I was having
So
a
you were in
hard
New
time
York and Mr.
following
Depp was
Depp
in
at points.
Boston? At
This is very
some
hard
point
to
Eventually
follow.
by May 2014. That's it.
All right. And what, if any, discussions or arguments did you have with Mr. Depp relating to James Franco?
I mean, if
in
anyone on that
timeframe
jury's had a
of May
broken nose, that testimony is going to
2014?
hit them as sus. My eyes want to water thinking about breaking my nose right now.
It's a nightmare.
I can, yep.
wanted to do this independent film. I
I'm struggling.
liked the story. I liked the character. I told him I'm not going to wear makeup in the thing. but
Objection, hearsay.
Apparently what? Narrate it, Elaine. Narrate it. Let's approach again and talk again about the fundamentals of hearsay. Also, I think parts of this are Miss Vasquez being strategic and starting to throw Elaine off of her questioning. I think that's also fair because Elaine has been trying to fix Amber Heard's testimony by saying, oh, was it this? Oh, was it that? And interjecting a little bit. So I was going to go to the split screen, but CBS is actually moving their cameras a bit more. So thank you for that, CBS. But Elaine is now being told by the judge again why statements from Amber Heard can't be admitted by her. And it's very, very interesting to watch Elaine try to say, but no, this is not being offered for the truth of the matter. The judge has sustained these objections consistently the entire trial. And there are times I have said, that's not the truth offered for the truth of the matter. And the judge does not want to hear it. She has been sustaining those hearsay objections consistently this entire trial. And she is not going to start changing the way she's ruling now. You are not getting into statements by
So
this party of
Tell the
I
jury
said
what
this.
Mr. Depp said.
And again, Amber
he
Heard is
was
very much
mad at
struggling
me
to talk
for
about someone
taking
not
the
herself.
job with James Franco.
She wants to tell the
He
first person narrative.
hated James Franco, and was already accusing me
Then
of
why did Elaine ask?
secretly having a thing
Oh, that
with
was
him in my past since we had done Pineapple Express together.
She was in Pineapple Express. Okay.
So I'm going to take you to the Boston plane incident. We've heard about that earlier, May 24. Can you please describe for the jury
What year are we in?
what took
Because
place
we're time traveling like
on May
Dr. fucking Who in
24
this thing, and I am confused.
relating to the
Help
plane
a girl
incident?
out.
Well, I had spoken to Johnny, he's in Boston, I'm in New York, and I spoke to him. He had already been upset with me and accused me in like many arguments about not telling him about scenes that I had. If I had a kissing scene any sort of romantic scene, and I wasn't
This all goes to the
explicit
controlling
about
that
what
they're
I was
trying to
going to
say.
do, then I was accused of having withheld information and hiding it from him. So I didn't want the fight, of course. I didn't want the argument, but I had to kind of eggshell tiptoe around how to
Says that a
tell
lot.
him when I had any sort of scene like that. And I did tell him in this occasion.
Objection, hearsay.
Okay, we need to stay with what Mr. Depp said.
She wants
Okay.
to tell her
Okay.
narrative,
So
and that's why it's hard.
he was upset with me.
Stephanie, I haven't. I'll
But
take
he
a look.
didn't sound coherent so much on the phone. He was yelling at me about how could you tell me this? How could you tell me this when I'm filming, when I have this scene that I'm doing? How could you tell me this when I'm working? Obviously, I couldn't tell him any other time because we were both filming, and I told him as soon as
Thank you for that,
it was
Kerwin.
relevant. But he kept saying, how could you tell me this? How could you just tell me this? And it was like I had told him I was having an affair or
Danica.
something, you know, it was that angry at me. But he kind of started to sound less connected to reality as these like arguments would happen on the phone. This is in one day. Eventually, he hangs up on me in the conversation.
What happened?
Screaming
Normally,
at
you
me.
would remember the like moment he said this and then hung up.
Um,
Like things
I
don't just
talked
end
to-
like bleh.
his assistants, I won't say what they said, but I had
This
conversations.
is interesting. It's
and
like it
felt
just bleh, it
encouraged
just ended.
that I could continue on with the plan, which was for me to get on the plane, go to Boston, pick him up, and we would go back to LA for his daughter's birthday. I was nervous because the conversation I had had with him, and he was so upset with me on that conversation, but I figured I assumed he had passed out and that he would have been kind of sobered up the next day, assuming that the work would mean that he felt pressured to kind of pull it together. And I get on the plane. He sent the plane, so I assumed he's not that mad at me. He's over it. We're moving on. He's sobered up. There had been a lot of talk about a sober plan, like a full detox, a full recovery, a doctor, a whole plan. You know, there were talks of that following what had happened in London. So I was feeling like, okay, well, maybe we're here. And I get on the plane. It touches down and the SUV pulls up and it sits on the
Dr. B
tarmac
says
for a
hi.
very long time.
Okay, Dr. B saying
He
bye.
knows I'm on the plane waiting for him. So I kind of started to anticipate that things weren't as I hoped, meaning that he was sober and had slept it off. And I get,
Dr. B wanted to say hi.
I'm sitting on the plane for a very long time waiting for him, and he finally opens the door, and I see him get out of the SUV, and I can guess by how he's moving, how he's walking. I didn't realize at the time I had already become really sensitive to these little changes because my life changed depending on what he was on. And he gets on the plane, and I just knew in every cell of my body something was wrong. And he comes straight up to me, doesn't say anything to me, but is looking at me. He's got these glasses on, and he takes them off in this kind of aggressive manner and sits down across from me, not in the usual spot. We'd kind of have our places on his plane, you know, where you get used to sitting. And I remember I got up and moved to accommodate him getting by so he could sit in the normal seat as per usual. He didn't. He sat across from me. At some point, and I don't really remember the exact sequence of it, we take off, and at some point
There were a lot of other people
he's
on this flight.
asking me what's wrong with me. What do I have? Do I have something to tell him? Do I have something to tell him? You want to talk to me about your day yesterday? And then it gets, I already know that he's drunk. I already know he's using, he reeks of weed and alcohol. I mean, his breath smelled so bad, and I could.
She's upset about the bad breath.
I could anticipate that there was a no-win situation here. There was no me talking myself out of this or talking him down or any, a lot of my arguments and my involvement in them are me trying to diffuse by explaining or
Objection, non-responsive.
She's telling the story, Your Honor.
It is narrative.
I'll
It
sustain
should
the
be
objection.
objection narrative.
Go ahead.
So he is asking me questions.
She sustained the
I
objection. That
know
means
to
she should have
not
waited for a new
engage.
question, but then nobody bothered to follow up.
I was polite. I made sure to answer minimal amount of, the minimal amount that I could.
They could
I
object to
moved
narrative.
slowly.
They're doing that a
I
little
was
bit.
trying to be polite, but not engage.
They don't
because
want to
there was
seem
no
like they're
win, and he
breaking up
kept
her story too much.
Going, kept asking me.
Strategy.
Eventually went from, do you have something to tell me, to, you want to tell me how much you liked it? Tell me, did he slip a tongue? It got worse and worse, just more. It went from asking me about how my kissing scene went or how the sex scene went to asking me what James Franco had done in the scene, to being really explicit about my body. He was talking about
What?
he
What?
was saying
What?
really disgusting things
Like what?
about my body, about how I liked it, how I responded. And then he started just straight up taunting me.
Saying
I know
what?
you liked it. He called me a go-getter. He called me a slut in front. And also this is happening with security and his assistants on the plane. And I remember I felt, I struggle to be able to tell you how embarrassed I was, because he was speaking to me in front of people in this way, asking me if I liked it and if I was wet, and why I wasn't looking at him. And that was proof I wasn't looking at him. That was proof that I was asking for it. Did I ask James to do this and this to me? And how about if he does those things to me? Insert sexually explicit descriptions of what he
See, the jury's not supposed to insert their own
Accuse me of-
imagination.
wanting or deserving. And I, at some point in this, get up and move to the front of the plane. And I remember getting up so slowly. I didn't want to aggravate him. I didn't want to give him any excuse to pounce on. I didn't want to upset him. I didn't want him to flip a switch and get worse. I just remember very slow movements. And I slowly get up and move to the front of the plane. And he starts throwing things at me. Ice cubes, utensils. He's calling me a go-getter, and then an embarrassment, talking about what an embarrassment I am. I don't know how many times I moved seats. I wish I did. I don't. I remember moving more than once, and Johnny came to me each time, not the other way around. He sits down in front of me at one point, and because I'm not answering him, I was looking out of the window, and he slaps my face. And his friend is in our proximity.
Which friend?
And it didn't hurt my face. It just felt embarrassed. Did he do that to me in front of people? It was the first time that anything like that had happened in front of somebody. I got up to move again, and he's just taunting me, having a laugh, screaming, and then just straight up mean, calling me names. And it was oscillating between those things. And I get up slowly again, and I just resolve to just sit the rest of the time up at the front of the plane.
She keeps saying these slaps
as I get
don't
up,
hurt. Every
he kind
single
of kicks
time.
the swivel chair.
He slapped me, it didn't
into my
hurt. He slapped me,
hip,
it didn't
kind of
hurt.
Just hits me.
Slapping
and I look at
hurts.
him, and he asks me, what are you
Also,
going to do about it?
If this video looks laggy, just
We-
refresh. It's not lagging on
I just
my
stared
end.
at him. I just stared at him and wanted him to see me. I wanted to get through to him. didn't feel there was it felt like there was a blackness in his eyes. I wanted to look at him. I wanted him to see me. It didn't even feel like him. And as I'm walking away, slowly trying not to be, I was being very deliberate about my movements, wasn't saying anything. I wasn't engaging.
I didn't do
I
anything.
am walking away from him
I didn't
slowly,
do anything.
and he tells me to hurry the fuck up. Hurry up. And I just look at him one more time, wanting to
The narration
penetrate
is
the monster to see the man that I love underneath that.
the narration
The
is
man I
odd.
loved. And he tells me to hurry up again. And I pull my gaze away from him. I walk away from him. My back is turned to him, and I feel this boot in my back. He just kicked me in the back.
Shouldn't
I
talk about
fell to the floor. I caught myself on the floor, and I just felt like I was
force,
looking at the
pressure, falling forward.
floor of the plane felt like a long time. And I thought to myself, I don't know what to do. I can't believe did he just kick me?
That's
No
how she
one
told it
said
earlier.
anything. No one did anything. It
Did
was
he just hit
like
me?
you could
Did he just kick
You
me?
could hear a pin drop on that plane. You could feel the tension, but no one did anything. And I just remember feeling so embarrassed. I felt so embarrassed that he could kick me to the ground in front of people. And more embarrassing, I didn't know what to do about it. I got up and I walked to the front of the plane. I sat down.
I thought she was in the front of the plane.
And I just looked out of the window. And Jerry Judge's security and
It's the only security
my
she talks about.
friend both kind of under their breath asked me, "Are you okay?"
Objection,
And
hearsay.
I spent the rest of the time looking out
I'll
of the
sustain
window.
the objection.
And
Did there come a time that you tape recorded Mr. Depp?
I've done testimony of a
on
lot of
this
people who have
plane.
been hurt. They normally don't know what kind of shoe hits them. They talk about the feeling, like the pain or the pressure
I
or the
want to sit here and
force,
say that I
but
was
they don't talk about the type of shoe unless
like,
it's like spiked.
I was telling myself I needed to leave him. But as he got worse, he demanded the oxygen tank from the flight attendant.
As he got
Flight
worse,
attendant.
how?
Excuse me. And he continued to drink and then eventually started howling like an animal and passed out in the bathroom with the door locked. And was howling, and I at some point pushed record on my phone because
Was he passed out or was he yelling?
there was that 5% part of me.
Objection, non-responsive.
I
That's
don't think it's
fair.
non-responsive. She's
Well,
explaining
Your opinion doesn't
what led
matter.
up to her tape recording and why.
She
I mean, I'll
didn't
just
ask that.
I mean, I can ask her,
Okay.
well, that's all.
Yes. Ask her the
did you
question.
Tape record him.
Why did you tape record him? Thank you for asking the questions.
Because I knew that Johnny wouldn't remember what he had done. I knew he would not remember. And if
Calls for speculation.
She can say what
She can say
she
why.
did it and what she thought.
But
can
that last part called for speculation. I'll sustain the
Don't
objection.
say I knew.
Don't tell her
why
how to
did you
testify.
tape
Don't
record?
say,
in my experience, when Johnny was that inebriated,
don't say
he would not
this.
remember
Don't say
what
that.
he had done.
Calls for speculation.
The jury is going to
How can
see
that
this
call for
attorney trying to
speculation?
tell her.
I'll sustain the objection.
This attorney, they're seeing this attorney
All right,
telling her how to
let's go to
testify.
defendants 221.
And that's why they keep objecting at these moments,
and I'm going to play
because Elaine is
three
trying to
different
fix
parts
it
for
and she can't fix it.
Your Honor,
And if
may
you
we
can-
approach, please?
I like Ms. Vasquez is the attorney for Depp. I really like her strategy here. I'm going to try to find a split screen real quick. I really like her strategy here of when she chooses to object. There's a lot more that she could object to, and she's not. And there's a reason she's not. It's because she's allowing there to be some flow so the jury can see the storytelling. And we're getting the same themes in the storytelling, right? We're getting like almost callbacks to other storytelling of, did he just kick me? Did he just hit me? That's very much a callback from yesterday, but she's narrating her experience. But when she has to talk about what other people did, and that's your testimony, what you saw, what you felt, what you thought, but not what you said, and then what other people did. I saw them do this. I heard them say that, especially when it comes to Johnny Depp. But she's trying to narrate this with her own narrative, and it's not going well because she's not allowed to bring in her objection. Also, I'm not impressed with the lane instead of normally objection hearsay, Your Honor, not hearsay, and then you list the legal hearsay objection, not offered for the truth of, not offered for the truth of the matter, or this is foundational, or different things that are reasons it's not hearsay. I'm not going to go through all the hearsay objections. My brain can't after this long week. But she's saying, but Your Honor, I don't think it's that. Your opinion is not a legal objection or a legal foundation to why the objection shouldn't be sustained. So that's where I'm getting frustrated watching this.
So we're going to start with 221 and we're going to call it A, and that'll be 0.
So they're trying to
1
admit
minute.
something into evidence. We'll see what they're admitting. I didn't hear another objection. I don't know if there was one, but we'll see. So they're working on a piece of evidence. Again, these should have been prepared at the beginning of the day. They had overnight. They know what they're doing. I need the evidence, Elaine. They're approaching again. Wowzers. What is happening on direct? We didn't have large breaks like this over the evidence during Depp's direct examination. And I'm just pulling up real quick the split screen so we can see it. Because I wanted to see what Depp was doing. And when we get back to the actual testimony, the audio on this feed, I am not living for. So we'll switch back and forth. Because I can do that. We should be getting up to the morning break here pretty soon in court. But it's very interesting watching Elaine Bredhoff, who is, from all accounts, a respected attorney in her area, not know some of these simple rules of evidence because they don't come up that much in deposition.
The first one with 0 to 1
and
minute.
she does a lot of
Can you turn up
depositions.
the volume just.
So we're getting to audio.
There's part of it that the noise of the airplane is a little bit
This is the
loud,
howling
but
audio, maybe?
to be able to pick up the noise.
Audio's coming in. Warning audio. This is why I wear noise canceling headphones on a plane. This noise I hate.
And then the second one is from 2:50 to 3:20, 30 seconds.
I'm confused about the time because, yes, Depp said the howling audio was from detoxing when he was flying home from the Bahamas. If this is the puking audio, I'm fucking out. I mean, I'm not. I'll be here with you. It is. She talks a lot about the
221
action.
is in evidence.
It's very
All of
odd.
221 is already in evidence.
So may I play the third one then, and then we
Yes.
can take the break?
Yes.
Thank
can
you.
play-
That would be at
You can play
9.
all of it if you'd like. That's fine.
I
Thanks.
think I'll torture the jury if I do that, Your Honor. 9:30.
already in
to 10,
evidence.
just
You can
30
play
seconds
it.
more.
But if this is the vomiting, you're going to torture all of us. We heard a lot of testimony from Depp's side that none of them witnessed any of this. I hear whispering.
Must have this fucking head in case you get sick.
I wish I'd screenshotted that face. It's called smirk. What was that audio of?
You can be changing gears after that, or do you have any more questions for this issue?
No, I think this would be fine
Okay,
for a break.
all right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our morning break then. Just do not do any outside research and don't discuss the case with anybody.
The jury is being dismissed, and we are getting into our morning break. I'm happy for it. The white dress is a choice, isn't it? As the jury is walking out of the room, we're going to start getting to super chats and questions. Yeah, I am struggling with the fact that what we're getting is a lot of, and then there was a boot in my back, but not the, and then I was,
Since you're still testifying, don't discuss your testimony with anybody at this point, okay? All right, so let's just come back at, let's make it 11:42. All right, 11:42.
Thank you, Your Honor.
all right, so we've got about 15 minutes-ish. I mean, don't make me math. But I like keeping the feed up to see what's going on in the courtroom. Of course, we're just going to make sure the audio, sometimes that audio bings at us, but welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to do super chats and questions and talk a little bit about what's gone on in court this morning. Same key as Heroes, which he sings with the vampires. I mean, again, Johnny Depp says that audio is from a different plane flight. They are trying to say this audio is from this plane flight. On cross-examination, I wonder if they'll ask about how do you know it was that plane flight, and can you show us the metadata, because there is an issue with digital evidence being turned over, not turned over. Does Johnny testify again, or is it just the once? I don't think that Johnny Depp will testify again. He can. His side gets a rebuttal, which means his side can present rebuttal witnesses. I think they will just present I think they'll just present Dr. Curry, because they've already presented this. They've already presented a lot of evidence regarding who was on that flight, and they're not going to be able to recall the other witness on that flight, who Gina Deuters, who was asked if she had seen clips of the case after a kerfuffle with a Instagram post that wasn't actually an Instagram post from Right Now, et cetera, et cetera. So how are Law and Crime able to claim? They just do it and then they release it, Dan B. But when Law and Crime has issued claims for streaming court coverage, they do it midstream and it can take the stream down and then they release it later. So I've had some issues with them that I will talk about. I've talked about elsewhere. So I try not to use their feed for that reason. So I'm going to try to get to some of the super chats and questions. Thank you again. We've got about 15 minutes. So when we get to super chats, I try to pull them up onto screen. I might not be able to pull all of them up on screen. I will absolutely do my best. If there is a question, please put a Q or a question mark in front. If you're just sharing your experience with the chat, I will still try to pull it up, but I know that I don't need to answer it as a direct question about this case or about the evidence. So thank you all again for being here, and thank you for this. If you are new here, don't forget to do the YouTube like, subscribe things. I appreciate it. And you can follow me around social media at the Emily D. Baker. Let's get into some of the questions from earlier today. Amber's legal team keeps dropping the Rocky versus Johnny lawsuit. Is it important for Johnny's team to put that lawsuit in context? Steve, not necessarily. I don't know if it's helpful for him. He was accused of punching someone on set. That doesn't prove that he punched Amber Heard or assaulted her or abused her. Again, this is a defamation case. And I think Depp's strongest argument here is, look, they're going to argue that her reporting the temporary restraining order, they're going with two tacks now. I see why. They're going to try to say, one, reporting the temporary restraining order was her reporting on domestic abuse. And that is literally true. She did go and get a temporary restraining order. It was an ex parte. He didn't have a chance to respond, but she went and got it. So she reported. But if they can say everything underlying that is false, then isn't that a lie too? And isn't even getting the TRO a lie? So that's why they're trying to go to the underlying incidents, Depp's team is, to prove that even getting the TRO is a lie. So therefore, the statement in the op-ed is not literally true. But they're also going the second tack of the controlling abuse or the controlling factors to say, look, this is a pattern. He's controlling what she does and wears. But we also heard Depp's testimony that she didn't want to just be a Hollywood sex symbol. She wanted to be taken more seriously. So in context, these conversations are being presented in the light most favorable to the party that is speaking them. But in context, the jury might be like, okay, well, there's two sides of this coin. She also did say early in her testimony today that she would only take roles and parts with minimal makeup. How is that going to play with the fact that she was allegedly wearing, or her team said she was wearing, enough makeup to cover bruises on her face and bruises from a broken nose, and then still wearing minimal makeup? There's a lot of questions here and a lot of questions here for sure. Thomas Burke, welcome. Here's to another day streaming. Over on Patreon, the I Have Thoughts podcast, I'm recording a new one tomorrow about this week. How many objection hearsay do you think we'll hear? Lots. Don't make it into a game. Thunderdome in court, not in the chat. I'm from Australia and can summarize what has happened. If Amber is found guilty, she won't be found guilty. This is a civil trial, so she will either be found liable for defaming Johnny Depp or not responsible for defaming Johnny Depp. If she's found liable, she will be required to pay a certain amount of money. If she's found not liable, away she goes. Johnny Depp can also be found liable for defaming her or not liable for defaming her. Or the jury can say, all of you go. All of you go. Can Amber Heard's juvenile arrests come in? Juvenile arrests cannot come in. Juvenile arrests are generally off limits, even for impeachment. But the nurse's notes have Amber Heard admitting that she had a personality disorder that, again, Dr. Hughes said she had never been diagnosed, but she kind of reported that to her treating nurse, that she was dealing with an eating disorder, a personality disorder, cocaine addiction, and other things. So I think the nursing notes are actually more powerful than juvenile records, because in the nursing notes, we have all these statements of her using in the context of working with a nurse who was an addiction specialist. That's why they brought that nurse in. So that is the point of that nurse. And question from a newbie. Welcome. Do judges watch any coverage of the case? No. Or do they stay away from it? No, they're living it. I don't know if they'll look at it later. They're living it. This judge has been, though I don't always agree with her hearsay rulings, I don't always agree with how she rules. She's been absolutely consistent, and I will take consistent any day of the week. The lawyers know what's coming. She's been completely consistent on her hearsay rulings on both sides and has been very mindful of that. So all of the Milani makeup was on sale at the store yesterday. I feel bad. It's not their fault she brought them into this. Justice for Milani. I don't think it's their fault either. Why, when Richard Marks apologized to the court for cursing, it was thought polite, but when Amber Heard did it yesterday, it was thought disingenuous? Do you think the jury feels the same, or are we being too hard? I didn't think it was disingenuous when she apologized, but she was also talking about her feelings, and she didn't apologize to the court. She was looking directly at the jury. But when Richard Marks apologized for cursing, he was relaying information from the evidence. She was cursing and explaining her feelings. And it was interesting the way that she was like, oh, it was like a recomposure, not a apologies to the court. So that's why I thought it was different. It felt different to me, but that's up for everybody. I want some drinking game rules. Chat, you can determine. It's early here for me, so we're coffee. Do you think they focused on Amber Heard's horse breaking as a child to paint her as someone who will stick around no matter how wild, aggressive the person is, staying on the wild horse? Maybe. I mean, they might. It was interesting they got into it. When I heard in opening the breaking horses, if I'm Depp's team, I'm like, she was determined to bend wild things to her will. And that is the direction I would go in that. She was determined to break Johnny Depp to her will at any means necessary, withholding medication during his withdrawal, forcing him to do this. I would absolutely take it that direction. How do you determine which jurors will be deliberating? I don't know how they do it in Virginia. I don't know if it's jurors 1 through 5 or if they will randomly draw which juror number will be deliberating. I'm not sure how they do it, but I can look. Thank you. Yeah, we are on last day of trial here, and we definitely, it's a bun. Amber Heard was ripping lines from Reservoir Dogs and Notting Hill yesterday. Much love from Scotland. Glasgow, thank you. I also saw people saying she was ripping stuff from Walk in the Clouds. I'm sure the internet will stitch all of that together in a way that we can easily consume it. Did you see New York Post Photoshop tears onto pictures of Amber Heard from yesterday? No, didn't. I didn't see that. Good morning, Emily. I'm a new fan here, also a fan of the Cursey Words. Thank you. Your commentary has unleashed the law nerd in me. That's what we're here for. Yesterday, Amber Heard deposition was word for word out of the talented Mr. Ripley. I'll have to go look. It's like the sun shines on you and then he forgets you. When you have his attention, you feel like you're the only person in the world. That's exactly what she said yesterday. And if that is a line from the talented Mr. Ripley, I hope that Depp's team either picks up on that or capitalizes on it. It's why you need lawyers with diverse interests and backgrounds. Look, I got made fun of for loving reality TV when I was in my trial work, but it's why you need diverse interests. You need someone who's like, I know this, let me find it. Sending a super chat to celebrate 1 year since I found your channel. Thank you. Also, happy birthday to Dr. B. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. At the beginning of her first minutes on the stand, she said the article I wrote. She does. Doesn't that prove this whole case? No. We know she wrote the article. It's going to be about the headline, but again, Dr. Hughes testified that the headline and not believing it was the most damaging to her. We know she wrote the article. It's whether or not it's defamatory and whether or not the statements are untrue. How will I get through the next week without this? I mean, we'll still have our regularly scheduled stuff. We've got to talk about Rust again. There's a lot that's happened there. Could Amber Heard's team purposely leave out photographs and iCloud because they would be more damaging to her case than not submitting it? The jury's allowed to draw that conclusion, but they can also get sanctioned for it. It's not, their discovery violations are not good. And I think it is one of the things that might tip the case in the favor of Johnny Depp because it will frustrate the jury, especially if they get an instruction saying that Amber Heard's side has failed to disclose certain matters of evidence. So it can be very damaging, that jury instruction. So they've been live. She's on the stand. We got that. One of the feeds I was on was a little slow. She's trying to paint him as a narcissist, saying he's marrying her dad. I mean, she's trying to. I don't know if the jury's going to believe it. Thank you all for the hints on which feeds to get to this morning. Hope you're okay today. Just a little tired, but good. Coffee Fund. Thank you. First time in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. I have not watched Psychology in Seattle yet. I will be catching up on like other people's perspectives, the OPP of it all tomorrow, when I'm working on the podcast. As I'm coming into this, I really, other than having like a little chat sometimes around LawTube, it is like watching this and then like family stuff. It's Taurus season. My son turns 2 next Monday. Thank you for the commentary. I'm glad to find you. Thank you. Let's see. Do you wonder if some of her story, if false, might be some of what went on between her and her parents? I don't know. Even though I don't know, but it was interesting how she was describing the fact that she had to learn his behavior, but she was in Al-Anon and she was the child of an addict. It would feel like you would kind of recognize when people shift if you'd grown up in that experience. For me, that's my opinion, but we'll see. All of you that have had that experience, I'm sure know what I'm talking about. Because again, she's like, I had to learn Johnny's behavior. I hope they bring up the fact that she said he was on Quaaludes that seemingly were stopped manufactured in the 80s, in like 1985. Like, when was she born? Wasn't she born in the 80s? Like, weren't Quaaludes not being produced from the time she was literally born? So I've got questions about that. That mentioned it, but Amber Heard got the accusations. Part of it felt like talk of very little substance. That's what Dr. Curry was saying, that there was a lot of language, but not a lot of substance. There's a lot of exposition, but not a lot of what she felt, not a lot of what she saw, not a lot of what she did. She wants to say what she said. So I can't believe I Stand With Amber Heard is trending. It might be. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to believe her no matter what. And that is a difficult thing. Everyone has, if you watch the whole thing, you watch the whole thing and you can make up your mind. It's very hard watching the whole thing to not juxtapose her testimony to all the other testimony we've seen before. We've got just a few minutes before court comes back in. So they aren't allowed to discuss their testimony while on the stand, but be real. They don't even whisper some tips outside the courtroom. They shouldn't, because if they get caught doing it, it can be a huge problem. And this would put them in a really bad position. And the last thing they want to do is be put on the back foot. They've got enough problems with that discovery violation. her facial expressions were, I mean, she was like this talking about stuff. It's interesting. How scandalous a 50-year-old fell asleep in a chair. I mean, don't anyone tell my husband who falls asleep on the couch when he watches television. Don't tell him. Not that I would ever photograph it, because why would you? Unless the cats are sleeping on him, and then it's adorable. Here's a photo of Johnny Depp in vacation clothes sleeping. Yeah, all of us when we spend our time in the sun and in the sea. According to Amber Heard, punching is hitting, napping is passing out. I mean, punching is definitely hitting. Or punching isn't hitting, I guess. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you. You're welcome. Your commentary has made this bearable. Thank you. I'm going to be yelling about hearsay this entire time. I'm going to start whipping out my rules of evidence. We're going to have to do like a whole video. Maybe I'll do that next week, a video on hearsay and hearsay objections. So we're like all on the same page, like mini lessons, Law Nerd University with Emily. It's strange that somebody felt trapped, took so many incriminating photos and recorded conversations. Are they allowed to submit new evidence without the other party knowing? No, unless it's impeachment. And even then there's some rules around it in a civil context. They've done depositions. Like they've got a lot of this information already in. They've done depositions. They've heard her at the UK. They're just recording what she says. They're going to take a week on break, go through everything that she said and start connecting the dots for cross-examination or for closing argument. So if the talented Mr. Ripley stuff doesn't come out, it might come out in closing argument. So it is just, can we get a lawyer to remove him or herself from a case if they think their client is lying? In the civil context, they generally wouldn't. In the criminal context, there's some different things you would do. It's your job to present your client's case and to facilitate them telling the truth. But civil, those lines can get blurry. Like, what if she believes it's the truth, even if they don't believe her? She believes it. So why doesn't she have to turn over her text message? She does. She just hasn't. And I think her team will get sanctioned for that. How do they know if anyone watched or read anything about the trial? Normally when jurors pick up information, it'll come out in the jury room and other jurors will tell on them. That's normally how they learn. That's what happened in the Cardi B Tasha K case. One of the jurors tried to talk to another one about the case while it was ongoing, and the juror went and told the judge. You will get people who very much follow the rules of being on jury duty and take it very seriously. I appreciate people for that so much. People generally do take jury duty very seriously. She's trying to say she doesn't take drugs or drink. It's coming off as very self-righteous. Well, on cross-examination, it's going to be very interesting because at their wedding on the program was dinner, dancing, and drugs. So, that's going to be hard too. It looks like we are coming back into court.
We ready for the jury?
May we approach?
Okay, sure.
Your Honor, can you explain me the hearsay rules just one more time? Can you just tell me what you're going to get in and what you're not going to let in? And again, as a reminder, thank you for all the super chats. I do see them. I might not be able to pull them all up on screen. I appreciate you. Thank you. And I know a lot of this is sharing for the chat. If you have a question for me, this is very helpful, so I know that I can answer it. Do you think Johnny Depp's team is being harder on Amber Heard than Amber Heard's team was on Johnny Depp? It could be perceived that way. I think they are. At points, they're definitely objecting more. They let Johnny Depp just go. There were a lot of times where they could object to narrative and non-responsive, and they chose not to. They are definitely tailoring it in more. I don't know how the jury will perceive that. They might perceive it as hiding something. They might not. So they have to keep an eye on the jury and decide what they want to do. So I'm a 5-year civil litigator and still review basic hearsay exceptions before a 6-week trial, just saying. I do too. I would have my evidence code in court with me and review it in case I need it. You need to have that ingrained, especially if you're not doing it every day. In criminal, you kind of had your handful of things that you used and you knew them, but I would always review that. I don't understand why this is coming up now. Like, how are you confused that you can't get the evidence in now? How is this a problem? We are 4 weeks into the trial. You know what evidence you're going to submit, but it feels like they are really trying to make fetch happen. Will she really be able to go a week without discussing this with anyone? Her PR guy, she can't discuss her testimony. She can discuss the case. I worry,
All right,
but
you
lots
ready
of
for the
times for
jury then?
Depp's team to
Yes, Your Honor.
prepare.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm gonna have to look into the talented Mr. Ripley stuff. Amber sure did heard a whole lot of things. I mean, yep. What's your coffee mug and does it keep coffee hot? Yes, it keeps it hot for long because I normally drink coffee while streaming, so I don't always get it done. But it's in my Amazon shop. It's a Stanley mug. This particular color was a Starbucks collab. But yes, it's Emily D. Baker or Amazon.com. It's linked down below. I can pull it up. I think I have it here somewhere. Hold on, where is it? I like WAP. We are professionals here. Me, do you know where it is? Nope. It's there. So you can find it really easily. WAP. We are professionals. That is our definition of WAP here with the law nerds. So thank you for asking. I will go look at the Talon Minister Ripley stuff. I will. Yes, I'd love Law Nerd University with Emily. I mean, we might need
All
Law
right,
Nerd
thank
U merch.
Right, see your next question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
She'll just say the wedding programs were Johnny. I mean, her
Amber,
friends were the ones doing MDMA,
Following
not
the
him.
plane ride, what
I will
did
do
you
that
do
at the break.
once you arrived, once you landed in LA?
I called for a car to pick me up, met me at the private airport, and I left. I got straight off the plane as soon as we touched down. Johnny had been saying what he would do to me once we got on the ground, and I didn't know how long this cycle would last, so I wanted to just get out of there.
Okay, first of all, Wedge,
went to a
I
hotel
love your screen name.
and called my friends to join me, which was my coping strategy.
But if she fixed her nose, there would be doctor records.
I'm going to ask
nose
you
is-
to take a look
there
at
would be doctor
defendants
records.
204.
And she's an actress. Again, she's an actress. If she had injury to her face, I would expect medical records for her to fix that.
Did you reach out to,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay and bleeding.
We just fucking talked about this, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I would direct Your Honor's attention to the first one in blue and the third one in blue.
Jess, this was an
and, I would
issue.
say present sense impression and.
There's a real actual foundation, a legal objection, a
state of mind
legal
at that time.
opposition.
Yes.
Now we're going to have to talk about hearsay more. Didn't you just do this? You just approached. Why didn't you bring it up then? When Amber Heard gives her text, will there be forensic IT? That is the entire issue. I have a video about the motion for sanctions about this. She did not turn it over. The judge ordered her to turn it over, and it has not been turned over with enough time for it to be forensically evaluated. It is a big problem in this case. It is going to come up, I think, to bite her. Making a point to say it didn't hurt her. Weird. Yeah, she made a point to say, and I don't know if that's ego, but she made a point to say repeatedly that being slapped did not hurt her. There is a tag called Amber Heard's a liar. It is coming out. And Amber is quoting abuse that happened from her books and movies word for word. I will absolutely take a look at it after the trial is done. Thank you guys for the compliments, catching up. But some news sources last night had photoshopped photos of Amber's with tears. Weird question. Thank you for the questions. For all of us law newbies, what is dark week and why is it important to the trial? The court is dark next week. The judge is not going to be there. They are not going to be in trial. The attorneys have a full week to work, to prepare, to go over the testimony that's already been given, to get ready for cross, because the judge is unavailable next week. So it's a bye week. Can Johnny have Lily Rose testify? I don't know if that would play well to the jury, and I don't know if it's needed. Can Johnny Depp's team play snips from the Talon Mr. There would have to be foundation, but it maybe in closing, maybe. It depends if it comes up. Does the jury understand the objection issues to see something is wrong? I don't know if they see it the way I see it or if they see it like Depp's team is trying to block Amber from testifying. It could go both ways. I'm annoyed.
All right, let's go to 205. Defendants 205.
So they've fixed whatever they needed to fix. They've had a conversation about whatever they need to have a conversation with. Question, what would it mean for Amber's
This is a
side if she got
communication between
sanctioned?
you and Rocky Pennington,
It
your
would-
best friend, is that correct?
Cost
That's
them money?
correct.
And
Objection, hearsay.
we just approached. Why can't y'all sort this the fuck out when you approach? Ah. Why can't we get it together? Team. Why can't we get it together? Also, if it's present sense impressions, just some of this, I don't know if it's helping to make it seem like they are stopping her story. I don't know how much that would help. So for Amber's side to get sanctioned, the reason it matters is because A, she can get monetarily sanctioned, but B, there can be a jury instruction telling the jury that Amber Heard's side did not turn over evidence and it was detrimental to Depp's side. An instruction like that from the judge can swing the jury's opinion, saying, oh, well, they weren't fighting fair. So we will see what happens there. I volunteer to make Law Nerd Uni merch. I mean, we need like a uni logo and stuff. We'll figure it out. Who are Amber's witnesses? I don't know her witness list. I think some of her friends are going to testify. I think her treating doctors are going to testify. They have to bring in some medical stuff. Why is there no sense of time? I don't know why there's no sense of time. It's been very difficult. And Umbridge does try to say on this day here, but it's difficult to follow. Amber Heard starts stopping sentences and dropping of pronouns, changes in tense are indicators of deception. He starts crying versus he started crying. Jussie Smollett did that too when they stacked the deck by mixing truth with embellishments. We will see. I mean, I'm sure all of the body language channels and experts are going to give us the tea on that. It's just, I'm noticing it as it feels off. And so when I feel like it's off, I'm like, oh, that feels off. But I'm not an expert in that to know why it feels off all the time. Okay, make sure we're up to time. Why is this so hard? This meek and timid woman she's describing in the events doesn't track with what we heard on audio, and that might not track for the audio either.
205 with redactions is in evidence.
205 with redactions. Good. Well,
Thank
they
you,
fixed the redactions.
May we publish to the jury? Thank you.
Yes, if she loses, she can appeal.
So
I don't know if there's any appealable issues.
Rocky
though.
on this is Rocky Pennington, your best friend. Is that correct?
Congratulations,
Yes,
Liz, the
okay.
songbird.
And when did you send this communication to Rocky?
Oh, we binged.
Once I had
Thanks,
touched down in LA,
And you said,
Date,
I'm not
time.
good. What did you mean by that?
that I needed help,
You didn't say you needed help. You said,
That
I'm not
I-
good.
was scared.
We binged.
I was scared of what had just
Hello,
happened
my-
to me. I was scared of
Hello, my
what was gonna
privileged
happen to
tattooed
me.
friend.
scared if I left him. I was
We
scared
talked
if I
about
didn't,
sections.
and I needed help. I just needed support. I couldn't.
Say,
didn't
I
feel
need
safe
help.
going home. I still had my place in Orange. He had keys. I
She didn't say I need help.
was scared.
Did you text
Maybe.
your mother and your father about this incident?
Objection, hearsay.
If you want to,
What, if any, communication did you have with your mother or your father following this incident?
Objection, hearsay.
sustain that objection.
She can't say what she said.
Let's go to defendants 222 and.
No, I don't think we'll get to cross today.
Your Honor,
No
I
dumb
suspect
questions.
We're going to be back up. at the
All right, you want
bench
to keep
on this
on
one.
approach? That's fine.
Might be a dumb question, but why is the lawyer holding up a yellow pad next to JD? I don't know. Let's go switch views. It's always interesting when she puts on, I don't know. Oh, she might be blocking what he's doing. She might be blocking what is on the screen, but I don't know why. Is she been that way the whole time? I don't know. I don't know why she's holding up a yellow pad. No idea. Maybe one day we'll learn, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen her doing this in previous days. So no idea. No idea what's going on in their minds or in the courtroom from that perspective. If the jury has unanswered questions, how would they go about getting those answered? They wouldn't. That's the lawyer's job. The lawyer's job are to make sure the jury doesn't have unanswered questions. It's interesting to me. She puts the glasses on to read and then takes them off. But this might also be so the jury doesn't see. But it's hard for me to tell from this angle. So I don't know. But no, it's the lawyer's job. If the jury has questions, they can ask the court questions, but the court can't answer evidentiary questions. The court can answer procedural questions. The court can replay testimony, but the court can't answer anything else for them. I've seen comments of that. I have not seen that yet. I
What,
think
if
they will get
any,
into that on cross.
communications did you have with Kate James following the Boston plane incident?
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, if we go to 224,
Okay. 224.
Not
my
sure.
argument would be business records exception.
That's not an
Right, we're
exception to
gonna
hearsay.
Forward, we can do it.
What is happening today? And Why is Amber Heard's team not all the way together? Like, why are we not all the way together? Why is she looking woefully at the jury? I am so annoyed. I need to we're fluffing my aura like Whitney Rose. Why are we not together, people? You knew for like a year that she was going to testify. You know what you were going to put into evidence. Why, oh, why do you not have it ready to know if it is a statement of Amber Heard? They are going to object to hearsay because she is not allowed to put in her own statements unless there is an exception to the hearsay rule. The business records exception is a foundational exception. It doesn't go to hearsay per se. I am so annoyed. Can a legal team object to the opposing side's opening or closing opening statements or closing arguments? Yes, but it's got to be bad for you to do that because it looks real bad to do it. And it's generally fairly rude. Or are those moments where the legal teams can just tell their narrative without interference? No, they can object. There are rules to those arguments too. There are rules to that too. Is the jury aware of the rules? Oh gosh, I'm trying to get to this one up here. The chat jumped. Is the jury aware of the rules of the objection? No, but they're probably learning what hearsay is just from seeing it, but nobody explains to them. What does the jury do next week? Life things. They can go back to work, but they can't talk about the case. So that's going to be hard for them. But they can't talk about the case. I know the issue with her phone not being turned on, but how does she get away with that? It's a violation of a court order, yes, but the court's going to deal with it with a jury instruction or with a monetary sanction. I can't believe we're here again.
What, if anything, did you do the evening
And she
of
lost
the
and moved on.
24th of May?
She lost on that whole thing with the whatever text they were trying to bring in.
I reached out to
I don't know what he's
friends
doing.
and family, asked for support.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Move on,
and surrounded
Elaine.
myself with them, with that.
Trying to make
What, if
fetch
anything,
happen
did
is
you
trying to make
do
something that's not
for
a thing.
Lily Rose's birthday.
That's why we had gone back to LA.
We'll see.
Johnny was sick after having passed out on the plane. So I took her to dinner.
It's fun being a legal commentator for this trial.
We went to Benihana's.
Yes. Camille can be trying to expose that.
It was,
I have more thoughts on that.
again, put on my smile, took her out.
The objections might look petty. They
tried
might.
to make her feel loved and celebrated for her birthday. And then I booked a flight out to New York to go back to New York, obviously without Johnny.
They each have about 3 weeks.
I'm going to ask you to now turn to 225.
Yes, lawnerdshop.com. I have all kinds of stuff. What item are they getting
You're
to?
going to be referring to the last two blue spots on that page
The court ordered
with the state of
the
mind.
court ordered date to turn over all of her information was at the end of November last year, and it has still not been done yet.
Mental condition.
It's an issue.
It doesn't, it's still hearsay, Your Honor.
Okay.
May we approach?
I'm flabbergasted that this is what's happening right now. I don't have words for the fact that this didn't get sorted out earlier. They do evidence on Fridays. On Fridays, they sit there and go through what evidence is going to be brought in, what's not going to be brought in. And Bredehoff is really kind of falling apart here on these objections and not able to get it back together to either understand what they're turning in or what they're not, or what they're trying to admit into evidence or what they're not. I don't know if the jury, though, will see it as Depp's team hiding things or if they'll see it as Heard's team trying to get in things that are inappropriate. So with the sanctions, she needed to turn those over by the end of November so they could go to forensics. That was not done. And again, they can get a limiting jury instruction where the jury's told what they didn't do, or they can get monetarily sanctioned, or they could have delayed the trial, which clearly they didn't do because we're here. So they should be getting back to asking God only knows what, because they aren't able to get into these text messages that they seem to want to get into. And some of this might be a problem. They're happy with how this is going.
I'm going to ask
Clearly.
you to turn now to 228.
Okay, so she lost on whatever that last thing was, and they've moved on to a different exhibit. They're not going to get sanctioned on this. I don't know what she's trying to.
Your Honor, we're going
Do.
to object on hearsay.
First line, Your Honor,
Okay.
is all
She's got the rules of evidence
understand
in
Your Honor's
hand.
ruling, but I think
I understand Your Honor's ruling, but I think you think what? You think this goes around the court's ruling?
If you want to come forward, that's fine.
This is fucking embarrassing to watch. I have deep levels of embarrassment. We are at noon and they can't get in a question. They keep moving from exhibit to exhibit to exhibit, trying to put this in. And now I don't know, again, I don't know if a jury is going to say it looks like Johnny Depp's team is hiding things. That is a real possibility. But she keeps saying, I think this goes against the court's ruling. Deal with it all while you're up there, or deal with it over the lunch break, or deal with it last Friday when you were in court to deal with evidentiary issues. The fact that we are just getting into these evidentiary issues while this witness is on the stand looking woefully at the jury, everyone is annoyed. Everyone is annoyed. Everyone is annoyed. I'm annoyed. I don't know another judge that would be so patient with this. Most judges would have been like, counsel, if you don't understand, I can't tell you how to do your job. This is hearsay. The things that they are trying to admit are Amber Heard's statements to others, and that cannot be admitted by them. So they are trying to get things into evidence that they can't get into evidence. Depp's team runs the risk of looking petty, but also if Amber Heard wants to testify to those things, she just need to testify. So I think Camille is trying to break up the flow because Amber Heard was in a flow, but also this could be a strategy for cross-examination. Remember, Camille Vasquez here is going to be the attorney doing the cross-examination of Amber Heard. And with her doing the cross-examination, this could already be setting up tension where Amber Heard's already like, you know what, fuck this chick. I'm so annoyed. She won't let me tell my story. I'm not able to get into what I get into. And she might already feel mad. So this could absolutely be a thing. But I think she's protecting her case and protecting her client from evidence that she can't get into. So... And I'd be pissed. They violated discovery and didn't turn this shit over. I'd be objecting to all of it too. Are they moving on? Moving on.
Tell us.
She lost that one too.
Please tell the jury what you did then over that night,
Where are we?
day. And
I've forgotten where in time we are.
At the hotel.
No. What hotel? Where are we? What is happening?
A lot.
I love Observe.
Tried to surround
I
myself
need him
with
to
my
do all of
friends
this.
and resolve to leave him. I felt powerless.
She
Nothing
did
I
testify
did
yesterday to that.
made a difference. You know, on the plane, I was so careful.
Objection, non-responsive.
Fair.
Please just tell us.
Maybe
what
a little
you did.
petty, but
And-
it's
and
fair.
You can tell how you feel, but don't go backwards, okay?
I resolved, tried to, the strength to commit to leaving him. I knew I had to. I knew nothing else would make a difference. So I got
Man, oh
myself back to LA. New York. And started going to Al-Anon meetings every day.
Where in time are we?
It's a support group for people who love addicts and alcoholics.
What, if any, communications did you have with Stephen Duders?
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor,
She called for the
What if-
conversation. You asked for the
let me ask you this
conversation.
way. What, if any, communications did you have with Mr. Duders communicating on behalf of Mr. Depp?
Objection,
I
hearsay.
would say agency on that, Your Honor.
You have to lay a foundation for that.
Yes, you
All
do.
right, let's go to
This judge
229A.
is beyond patient. This judge is beyond patient. Beyond patient. You have to lay a foundation. You put objection and objection.
And
You put objection.
could you,
Shake it all about.
without
I
saying
was trying
what
to
the
hokey pokey
content
it,
is,
but
can you
yes.
tell us who this text message is with?
Johnny's assistants.
What's his name?
She might be trying
Same
to
as
block the
Stephen
jury from
Duders.
seeing it.
Okay. And what, if any?
She looks annoyed. I would be. This is
communication were you
frustrating for her.
having with
This is
him
not her fault.
following the Boston plane incident.
I'm sorry
Objection,
for that,
hearsay.
Katrina.
May we approach?
All right. Ms. Means?
For fuck's sake. All of the fucks. For the sake of all of the fucks. All right, we're going to answer some of these things. She keeps taking her glasses off to read things, which is funny. I am pressed. I'm so annoyed watching this. I have secondhand embarrassment. I'm annoyed for the court's time. I'm annoyed for the jury's time. The fact that they can't figure out how they want to present their evidence is really annoying. So pictures of what he's drawing came out yesterday. I think his attorney is blocking the photographers from taking pictures. It's possible. It's possible that they're just protecting their client and letting him do what he needs to do. And I will try to get to some of the super chats. I'm so frustrated that they are having a really difficult time with this. This is what they should have prepared for. They should have known that they were going to get hearsay objections. They made plenty of them themselves, and they should have been prepared with the objection and what their grounds were for getting it in. This should have been thought through in advance. This should have been prepared, or it should be innate knowledge if you do a lot of trials. But even if you do a lot of trials, you generally prep, hey, I think they're going to come with this exception, and you go through your own thought process of, and this is why it's not hearsay, because it is not only good practice, but you're prepared before the judge. I just don't understand how we are here 4 weeks into trial. And I'm really curious as to whether this will come off to the jury as Johnny Depp's team being petty, or if it's going to come off as Amber Heard's team trying to get in evidence that they can't get into. So Amber Heard dresses like a 1930s housewife, quote movies for emotions, and can't stop talking about herself. This is a circus. The lawyers are making this a circus right now. And it's wild. And she's just staring down the jury. Look, she's just staring at them. Did somebody bring her up a book of evidence? Good. Bring her the rules of evidence with a Post-it on it. Your Honor, this is why. But I don't know how the jury will feel about her just looking at this. She should be looking at her attorneys on the bench and not reading the jury, but reading what her attorneys are doing. It's interesting to me that she's not. So whatever is brought up today in Amber Heard's testimony, because there will be a dark week, JD's team will have plenty of time to prep. Yeah, they have all next week. They have all of next week to read through every line. They'll have transcripts to read through every line. And they'll also be able to go through and watch some of this if they have anyone on their team that's inclined to rewatch how she testified, what she said. And they can also look to the internet and see what the opinions are on the internet in general of how this is going in the court of public opinion. This comment, somebody said in the chat that Elaine's acting brand new. Yep. She's acting like she has never done a trial before, and she doesn't know what the rules of evidence are and what the exceptions are. And it's wild. So it's interesting to me that they tried to discredit Kate James, but I can see why from your chats, why they did. It seems to me that they don't trust her and think she might go off and show something they shouldn't. I mean, that's the concern here. And because they didn't get this evidence turned over, they are able to really narrowly tailor some of this and be like, this wasn't turned over. Could all of this, the hits didn't hurt stuff, be trying to set up the reason she didn't have evidence? I mean, maybe. Amber Heard's team is wasting time with the jury. No, this goes against their time, not Depp's time.
Depp in the days
this goes against their time, not his time.
Boston plane incident.
Each team gets their own time.
I did.
Please tell the jury about those communications.
I heard from him
After
directly.
the break. I don't think we'll be done today.
Through his assistants who were texting for him.
Objection, Your
Only Ms.
Honor,
Vasquez.
hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
You're not allowed to testify about the text messages with his assistant. but can
Only
you
Ms.
tell the jury
Vasquez,
about your
because
communications
this
with
is
Mr.
her
Depp?
witness. So one attorney, one witness.
Okay. It's kind of confusing because he was texting through them.
Objection,
But
Your
I-
Honor.
I'll sustain the objection. I'll strike that from the record and you'll
I
disregard that
understand.
testimony.
Ooh,
Please answer the question.
the judge is
Just
pissed. Did you hear her?
Confine it to
The judge was like, I will
communications you
strike
had
that
with
from the
Mr. Depp,
record.
please.
The judge is
That
mad.
he was sorry.
That was-
and, told me that he was in a blackout.
That was
He
something.
didn't remember everything about what he did.
She will try to
remember.
blame
He
her
was
attorneys.
Ashamed of.
She will try to blame her attorneys.
He begged me to
judge is
forgive him. Said he understood
Judge is
and
mad,
forgave
you guys.
me. Forgave me if I never wanted to speak to him again.
No, too late for a lie
I
detector. They had a
he texted me
psychological
at one
evaluation.
point, and then I didn't respond right away, and he
I'll look later. You
texted
guys
me
can tag
again
me.
that he understood that I had made my decision to move on and good luck, and I was better for it, and
Thank
then
you.
continued to contact me. I spoke to him when I was in New York on the phone, and he said that he was he had a chip, or that he was going to meetings, that he I think at the time mentioned another celebrity that was kind of
Fair.
advising him
Was it Elton John?
on sobriety, or not advising him, but
Can we name drop Elton John some
encouraging
more?
him. And he was saying, well, look, me and this person,
Why aren't we name dropping Elton John? You want to name drop everything else?
I've got 3 days sober, 4 days sober. And
Yes.
that was the last time. The monster will never come back. Monster will never come back. And because it felt like it felt so much worse than it had ever been before. And because I had,
Possibly.
I went to
possible.
New York, and I was trying to get my strength to leave him. I actually thought that it kind of would be the turning point. I thought I had effectively
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Outside the scope, narrative.
Overruled. Okay, go.
Thank you. Go ahead.
They're
Please
just, the
continue.
judge is like, can you just, it's narrative
I
is really
thought
the proper foundation.
I thought things would change.
Did you
There we go. That's responsive.
draft any kind of email to?
This is
Mr.
why
Depp
Camille Vasquez is the
to
attorney
express your
that
emotions
is
and
going to
how
cross-examine
you
Amber.
felt about all this?
Objection, hearsay.
Does call for hearsay.
She's
She's trying to get to present
I'll
sense.
lay the
Okay.
foundation, Your Honor.
She's
Let's
trying to
go
get to present
defendants
sense impression.
239.
239.
She's trying to get to present sense impression, which is somebody reciting something in real time. So it's not hearsay because it's a recording or a capturing of what they were experiencing at the moment. But I think this is intentional, so they look bad.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
They're
And I
looking
would
at the
say
document.
both present sense impression and definitely state of mind, Your Honor.
I don't have
Stating
Discord,
objection.
but you
All
can
right.
tag me on social media at the
So-
Emily D. Baker and DM me.
Did you ultimately communicate
She lost that objection too.
to Mr. Depp
Thank you.
what you first drafted up in an email without saying anything about what's in the email?
That calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
I'm just asking if she did.
Not what she said.
Correct.
Okay. Overruled.
Did you communicate to Mr.
Thank
Depp
you.
what you had drafted in the email? And you don't get to say what you said.
I don't think they're stalling.
Yes.
Okay.
I think they don't
And
know how to get some of these
what, if
things
any,
in.
response did Mr. Depp
And the
have
This is how the
to
judge has been
your
ruling.
sending that email to him?
This is a better way to do this questioning. How did he respond to the email? Fine.
He came to New York
Thank you. It's never too late.
to fight for the relationship, for me, to prove that he was sober and he was committed to changing.
Wait. In all of those audios, she said, "You're not fighting for me." And now she's mad that he came to New York to fight for her. It's completely inconsistent with the audio saying, "You didn't fight for me. You don't fight for us. Stay here and
he
fight."
was embarrassed and sorry. He said he was, and I believed him. So I took him back, or I got back with him
So this is after the Black Mass plane flight
on
fight.
the condition that he would uphold his promise to do the treatment, to do the full detox, clean up, and never go back.
So I'm going to take you now up to
And she's like, "I don't
The
believe this for
June-
a second."
through August 2014 timeframe. And I think you testified earlier, and others have as well, that Mr. Depp brought in Dr.
Stop
Kipper in his group,
testifying, Elaine.
correct?
Yes, he did.
Could you please describe for the jury what those next few months were like?
All of a sudden, this doctor gets brought
I
on.
got that too. I can do that.
Had,
I'm sorry. I'm just having
that
a
we had
really
been
hard time with her
talking about.
testimony
I'd
today.
heard this name before.
I'm not trying to make fun. I'm
And all of
struggling.
a sudden, this doctor, Dr. Kipper,
All of a sudden,
apparently wrote a book on addiction, and was this doctor was going to be the solution, the cure, and he got brought on board, and all of a sudden the plan was that this team would be
It's a lot of
involved
all
in
of a
Johnny's
sudden.
recovery. So it felt real, it felt serious. I felt like protected. I had already by this point heard a million times, it seems like, promises to get clean and sober, but this felt like a change. And they were going to come to Boston and start working with Johnny. And the plan was to keep Johnny on the same level of drugs that he was on since he was filming. They needed
Drugs or
him to
medication?
finish filming the movie. So he was going to be maintained with his with prescription pills, including the painkillers. And the plan was he would obviously abstain from alcohol completely and all other drugs like weed and coke. And then when he finished filming, the plan was to do
Objection,
the full
Your Honor,
detox.
hearsay.
I think she should
And
let
lack of
that
foundation.
one. Just let that one go. We already know some of this
I
stuff
don't
from Dr.
understand.
Kipper.
What the objection, I don't think it is. I think she was just explaining.
Your
the
opinion's
context there. I don't
irrelevant.
think She was saying
Well,
what
because
somebody
the
said.
What's
foundation, how she knew.
The legal,
How did you know that?
I was involved in the conversations
then it is hearsay.
with the doctors and with his sister.
And then it's what they told you.
Objection, Your
And
Honor,
next-
that's still hearsay.
All right,
Okay,
sustain the
that
objection.
part is. So.
Yes, Your Honor, that part is.
what
Yes,
did-
thank you.
what
We
happened
know.
next
Oh my God.
As a result of these communications, without saying what the communications
Y'all,
were.
A nurse came to
the
Boston.
wheels are coming off. of
Where
the
Johnny
tricycle
was.
that
I
is this
just would
direct
come for
examination.
short periods of time.
I don't know how
in
much she's getting
between-
paid.
I mean, on weekends from filming until I wrapped my movie, which I did, I think in May, if I am not mistaken. And then I went to Boston and I was there and saw a nurse was flown out to Boston.
talked about that.
Debbie Lloyd. And I believe Kipper came out too. And they put Johnny on a bunch of
a
new
lot of people that didn't
medications,
really
which
know
they
them.
shared with me, told me about.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I mean, she's not saying what
You
she
have to be
said.
careful about what other people.
She's now
say.
telling her how to testify.
Okay, but you can testify to what you know, okay?
Wow.
So what happened?
She's now
then?
telling her how to testify in front of the jury. That's why she's making
I
these
saw his
objections.
medications change. I know the amount that Johnny told them he was on was so that they could maintain him for the filming,
The
meaning not
shit's out of the
make a
horse on the
drastic
discovery
change in the
violations.
amount
It's too
painkillers
late
he was
to fix
taking.
it.
But his behavior, his whole personality changed drastically. He would be speaking to me, and at the time I was staying in Boston with him, having wrapped my movie, and he would, in mid sentence, mid word, fall asleep. One time I was sitting across from him, and he would come in and out
Injury
of
instructions at the
sleep,
end.
of being awake or completely what appeared to be asleep while talking to me, and he had
No.
a cigarette in his hand, and
So this is
Johnny
improper.
constantly smoked, and he just sat the cigarette, as he fell asleep while speaking, down on his leg. They're hand rolled cigarettes; they don't stay lit.
I don't think so.
very long, thankfully. But it was
I don't think it's
things
wise,
like that, and
but I
I
can't see
didn't
the jury.
understand it, even though I had experience with
Maybe.
drug use in my family. I hadn't seen anything like this, and it was so dramatic, the change, that I was trying to figure out with the nurses and doctors what happened, what changed, how we could explain the change and what medications were causing
Yes,
it.
in discovery, Jen.
I
That's
knew
discovery.
there were new medications involved, so I
We had
was
experience.
constantly worried and in communication. And Johnny's behavior got worse and worse, more of this passing out, nodding off, waking up in the
His
middle of the night.
behavior, not his addiction, his
Screaming, waking up in
behavior.
the middle of the night, sometimes crying. And the emotions would change from one to the next. Like by the second,
He changed by the
I
second.
remember we were on a long weekend when he was filming in Boston, and we went to this like a resort retreat hotel. And
I want to go to a
You know,
resort retreat hotel.
he was just bawling. It broke my heart. There was just a lot of changes, and I really didn't know. I felt so bad for him, and I thought maybe it was just what Kipper had introduced into the regime, the medications. But what I found out in that time,
Alexis,
is
it
that
really is that
he was
bad. It's
taking
not just your
about double the
medication after
amount.
getting your wisdom
Objection,
teeth
Your
out.
Honor,
It really
No,
is.
your
I
observation.
saw it.
This
I
is really
overruled.
happening.
Thank you. Please
This is
continue.
really happening.
It was taking about double the amount that he told them was his normal.
How
he
do you know
started
that? That's pure
the process
speculation.
with the doctors. So after
Depp
a
already
few,
testified to it, though.
it's, I think months of going, what is wrong? And,
No, we can talk. We'll talk about why they're hearsay.
turning him over
at the
when he
break.
vomited at night or checking his pulse. There were, all of a sudden when I realized
Marie.
the amount was about double,
The
I
discovery's
realized
really
then
annoying.
he
I'm still
had
mad about
been
it.
lying to them and me about the amounts so
How'd
that
you know?
he could get extra high before he had a detox. But that I can't that I
How'd you
was so
know?
it was such an agonizing weeks, months. It was so agonizing. I don't know how long it lasted, but I was
Thanks,
so
Jamie.
concerned for this person, and he had just been doubling up his meds
They
because he
gave her the
didn't.
rules of evidence.
So, Michelle, can you pull up 1092, Defendant's Exhibit 1092?
So he testified already that he was doubling up on prescription painkillers, on opioids, and that he would fall asleep. That's part of what she's talking about. That part's
Did you
very
take this
consistent.
picture of Mr. Depp?
I just don't know. Oh, this
I
is the
did.
Festival of Ice
Your Honor, I'm going
Cream.
to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit
Or is this a different one?
1092.
All right, any objections?
Because
No
the
objection.
Festival of
All right,
Ice Cream is already in
109,
evidence.
evidence,
What is
okay.
this?
Published, thank you.
And can you
He-
describe
I don't think this is as
What's
damaging as they think it is
depicted
because
here and why you
he's
took this picture?
already
This was during that time when
talked about being on the nod from his
The-
pain meds. He's talked about it. This isn't a gotcha.
prescriptions that
'cause he
was
took
on
all the
in
sting out of this
in the doubling
testimony.
up of the opiates got so bad that he was like this just throughout the day, off and on. And then he would take Adderall and he'd be really animated and ready to go. And then it would be this again. And it was so erratic and it changed so quickly. And I naively now really did
narration.
not understand what was going on. I deeply
How did you
cared
not
about
understand?
this human's well-being.
It's odd to me as someone with a child with
And
addiction. She's saying she's
It
been
was
to
very
Al-Anon
confusing and
meetings
scary.
and she didn't understand. That's odd.
So did there come a time then that Mr. Depp went into detox for Roxycodines or whatever they're called?
Roxycodines
Yes,
and
when
Amica
he finished
cream.
filming, the plan was to do the detox,
Mhm.
and that's what we did.
Mhm.
And when was that?
That would have been early August of 2014.
She's been
I
working this case
believe
for
we
years.
left. We were there for,
Roxycodines.
I think, a week to 10 days, 8 through the 18th, more or less.
And we've heard some testimony about this, but can you please describe for the jury what took place during this detox on the Bahama
It's-
Islands
it's-
in August 2014?
It's very odd for me that she keeps saying, I didn't understand. I didn't understand. I've
It
gone to
was for the
Al-Anon.
first few days.
My family has addiction in it,
Okay.
but I didn't get it.
peaceful.
It's very odd to me.
The nurse, and then later nurse and doctor were staying
She
on a
chose
different
these
part of the
lawyers.
island.
And is paying them.
A few minutes drive by ATV, like 10, 15 minute, by one of those ATV vehicles. But we communicated via walkie-talkie and occasionally through text. And it was okay at first. And then the behavior, that it just really wasn't okay. It was up, down, he'd be mad at me. Then he was wanting a hug. He cried a lot. And then he, wanted to have sex a lot, which is just not like Johnny at all. And it was just like that. It was just up, down, mood. And it was like I felt like a constant was catering to the mood, that whatever he was going through at the time. I was just trying to adapt and kind of roll with it and provide support. I was taking his blood pressure. I was on a schedule and constant communication with the nurses about delivering the meds, giving him his meds at a certain time. I was just trying to take care of him. And a few days in, I guess the effects of the detox really started to change. And it went from
just
this,
say
like,
what you're
erratic
seeing,
behavior,
not why you think it's happening.
up and down to just really
She's over
down
explaining, and it's
mad.
hard.
He bursts into anger at me, yelling at me. I crossed the table. I walked away from it at the table. I crossed the table in a certain way, and he screamed at me about that and tried to overturn this table. Luckily, it was bolted down to the deck, but I remember him shaking it and screaming. And at different point, he
The table was
was
bolted.
really calm and sweet and thanking me. And then
Thank you, Betty.
another, he looked like he was balancing out, and we had a conversation, and he was saying he wanted to quit the detox, and he couldn't do it anymore. And I was trying to find the language to encourage him. I was trying to remind him how much he wanted that, how much he had told me he wanted that, how much I was reminding him, he told me all the time, I saved his life, and he wouldn't be doing this without me.
Congratulations,
I was telling him these
Barty.
things, and I was
Congratulations
at
to
one
your
point
daughter.
in our conversations, I told him about how
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I told him. That's
Please try to continue without what you said.
don't say what you
Um,
said.
I said something to him, and he got so angry at me, he slapped me across the face. But he did it while crying. It was the weirdest thing. He was crying, saying no woman had ever embarrassed him like that. No woman had ever made him feel like that. I heard that for the rest of the trip too, just on repeat. And I felt bad. I
Seems odd
feel
to me
bad.
too, Lexi Unicorn.
Still feel bad. But, didn't want to make him feel embarrassed. That's not what I wanted to do. It just was in
I don't
my
know.
head. I don't know
I
how to
think-
detox someone. I don't know how to help them through that. And I shouldn't
have what?
have been there. I don't,
Why were you there?
because he asked me to.
That's not what he said.
And I didn't know that was a phenomenally
this
dumb
is
idea. I don't know
odd.
why why the doctors and nurses didn't tell me not to. I had no idea what
didn't
that
want you
was
there.
going to look like or be like. And it was hell. We're on an island. I'm trying to take care of him, and he was hallucinating and
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
I think it was responsive.
screaming at me
Oh, whoa. Right back
for
into it.
things that I said when I didn't
No
say any,
pause.
I hadn't said anything. I would tell him, Johnny,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I think in the context, Your Honor, it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
It's true. That's
What's-
fair.
It's just telling
then
the
why is it
context of,
I'll sustain the objection.
The judge is like, then why is it
please
relevant?
continue and just say what he says and what he did and what your observations were.
he was accusing me of having a man in the house with me. We were in a
Very small
single,
house. We saw the
in a
video.
cabin. It's basically one room with a closet and a bathroom. I mean, there's nowhere to hide, really. I mean, there's a closet and a bathroom. And he, at one point, told me that I was hiding somebody in the house. Another point, he was communicating with someone not in the room. It would yell at me and then yell at someone else. It wasn't there. And I tried to ask for what I should do. I didn't know what to do. It was terrifying and
You guys, there are
strange.
58,000 of you in the chat. Hi, thank you. This is all
the
very
whole
strange.
week was
So
Yep,
after
there's
you
a lot of
left Bahamas
contradictory
and
about
finished with the
how she
detox
got to the
there,
Bahamas.
Where did
There's a
you
lot of
go from
contradiction in
there?
that testimony.
we, meaning Debbie Lloyd,
She did blame the nurses for her being
Uh,
there.
Dr. Kipper, and I and Johnny, we flew back to LA, and he was going back and forth between saying he wasn't going to continue to, he was committed. It was back and forth. Everything was up, down, erratic, changing every second.
She's not answering the
And
question.
We got to LA,
It's
and
non-responsive. Not answering the question that was asked.
Debbie
Use it with your
and
kids. It's
Kipper
fantastic.
communicated with me. I won't
Objection,
say what
not
they
responsive.
said, but
Ask what I asked you.
I
Answer what
decided it
asked
would
you.
be probably in everyone's best interest if I went away to a hotel. Johnny put me up in this room in this hotel while he finished the process of detox in LA. And I had my friends out with my girlfriends there to support me as per usual.
We were
So Michelle,
Well-
can you pull up 272, please?
Michelle's the real MVP putting up with all of this, but her determination of, her girlfriends being around is very different than
And
what
after you
Dr.
both
Hughes said about
returned to
isolation.
LA, did Mr. Depp communicate with you by text while you were apart, while he was finishing?
It's hard to know
Yes, he
how
did.
people have done in
Yeah,
trial,
I'd like to move
when
the
they have a lot of
admission
settled cases,
272.
and that's just
Any
typical in
objection?
civil.
Yes, Your Honor, to the first message. Excuse me, Your Honor, to the
You
second.
mean the response?
Right.
Okay.
This all should have been sorted out.
Just present sense of impression, but I'm understanding Your Honor's
Yeah,
rulings on that.
Did
So
you want to redact it?
Can we
That's fine.
redact?
The
that
judge,
second
this all
message?
should have been done, but the judge has been very consistent in her rulings. I think some of her rulings on hearsay are way too broad, but she's been consistent about it. And Amber Heard's team needed a plan to deal with that because they saw it for 3 weeks. They know how this judge rules on
All right.
hearsay. They
Your Honor,
know she's very
All
broad.
right.
They
Any
know
objection
she's
to
not super
272
friendly to
redacted?
hearsay
No, thank you, Your Honor.
exceptions.
272 is in evidence and we will publish.
Is it abuse though, even if all the things? No,
Remember, I'm going to show you now.
I don't think
what
so.
is Defendant's Exhibit
It's her showing his story's not
272,
true.
and This is
That's what
on
she's trying to show.
August 20, 2014.
That his recitation's
It's a
not
text
accurate.
message from
Believe her,
Mr.
not
Depp
him.
to you. Do you see
That's what this
that?
is.
Yes, I
This is
do.
believe me,
Okay.
not him.
And just so that we can highlight here, he's calling you, he says, just to let you know that I'm fine, my angel. I miss you, of course, but this was the right thing to do to speed up the process. I love you more than life. Yours.
She's adding a
deeply.
lot to the
See that?
story.
I do.
It will matter on
So
cross.
what, if any, expressions was Mr. Depp giving you at this point that he
Yes,
was angry
on
with
cross.
you ever?
If it's inconsistent from prior
having
testimony,
to help participate with
that'll
the
be
detox or to
cross-examination.
be on the island or anything along that line?
Objection, form, compound.
I'll allow it, but just for trying to keep the record clear, 272 has already been entered into evidence.
The judge
without
sounds
that
annoyed.
redactions, and there wasn't any objection. So I would wish if I could have both sides to keep track of their evidence. It's not my job to keep.
this isn't my job.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I just got a note to that effect. So
Okay, so 272 is in evidence without, you can clear the redaction. and-
So you
and
think her
publish
PR
it.
team told her to grab tissues today? She's
It's
doing it.
really the party's responsibility to take care of the record, not mine.
my apologies on that one, Your Honor.
Ooh, it is the party's responsibilities to take care of the
All right.
record, not mine. This judge is annoyed today
All right,
because
and I overruled the
Depp's team
objection, so
kept
she
their
answered the
direct
question.
really
Thank you,
clean, kept their evidence really clean, and this has been kind of a cluster this
Sorry,
morning.
can you-
I'm annoyed and
Yes.
frustrated and
Yes.
tired.
That's fair.
The judge
fair.
must be exhausted
What,
with
if
all of this
anything, did
nonsense.
Mr. Depp say about that you were torturing him on the island and he didn't want you there?
Very confusing for me to hear that
Yes.
because
And if you subscribe, you should get notified.
even
So
though
don't forget to do that.
he was hallucinating and
It's her
angry
choice.
at me at various moments when you would have these kind of episodes,
You're welcome.
I did nothing but try to take care of him. I'm not a nurse. I did my best to support him. And he thanked me. He thanked my mom. He thanked my
did.
dad.
He did. He did do that.
And told me, of course, I saved his life.
He did do that.
That he wouldn't be able to make this change without me.
Yes.
And
She's
that
not allowed to say what she
this
said
process was horrible and hard on him and us and me.
because she's testifying in real
but that
time.
he
She
was
needs to
so
say it on the
thankful that I
stand.
was there for him.
What she said's generally not relevant because she's testifying. She
Okay,
needs to
we can
testify.
Write this down now, Michelle. Thank you. And I'm going to take you up to October
September?
2014.
Thank you. Time. We have time.
Do you
September, October
remember
2014.
Filming Magic Mike 2 in that time frame.
Objection leading. It's foundational,
Yes, I
but it's
do.
leading. She was in Magic Mike too?
And what, if any, connections did you have with Mr. Depp in that time frame?
Were you married yet?
Well,
so confused.
I bargained with him about me doing the role. He told me he would call the actors. It was a mostly male cast,
Yep.
but I bargained with him.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It's foundational. It's foundational. It's
Don't say
foundational.
what you said, just say what he said, okay?
He
Thanks, Jamie.
reluctantly kind of
Crouched at the starting
agreed
line. I'm sorry.
to
I'm lost in this
working
testimony. My brain
on
has
this
gone
movie
elsewhere.
or taking a job.
Every time
he
she
was
says
filming
reluctantly, all I hear
A
is
different movie in London at the
Jerry
time.
was a race car driver.
I wasn't going to play a sexualized character
Yes, Nicholas.
I
I
wore
think
no
that's why
makeup
they're objecting.
or minimal makeup in the movie.
Wore no makeup.
No sexy clothing. No kissing scenes. No sex scenes. So I went and did that film in October of 2014.
I have to watch
in
Magic Mike
Georgia,
2 for research
while
purposes.
he finished his movie in London. And then at some point he came out to pick me up in Georgia and was there for my last day or two of filming.
Did he get in a fight with Channing Tatum? I want to know that. Can we? Did something happen? I want to hear about that.
Michelle, can you bring up 310?
The testimony is very hard to follow. And then the stops for the hearsay is also going to make this come across very disjointed to the jury. I think that the testimony from Depp didn't come across so disjointed.
With Mr. Depp about auditioning for
you.
another role in this time frame.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to object to the exhibit. That's hearsay.
You are objecting. Are these are all exhibits that
Not
have,
sure who's in the text exchange.
that's why.
It is a text exchange, Your Honor, so, but the
Which
green
parties?
is Mr. Depp,
How do we know? Where's the foundation?
and
You can't lay the foundation yourself, Elaine. You've got to ask the
one
witness to
I'm
lay the foundation.
most focused on is on the second page. Your
Somebody
Honor,
for the
top.
love
Did
of
we vote on
court
the second page?
lay a foundation.
All right.
The judge
Just
pushed
that
it to
text.
5:30 today, and she's absolutely regretting that
Based on
decision.
Your Honor's rulings, yes.
Any objection to that text?
No, thank you, Your
Okay,
Honor.
if we can get that redacted.
This all happening in real time is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
And while that's being redacted, Amber, let me ask you, what, if any,
She's calling her by her first name
anything
too,
was
instead of
Mr. Depp
misheard.
saying to you?
This whole team's
in
going by
this
first names.
Time frame, we're talking.
So I'm not gonna
November
make much of it. It's just what they're doing.
2014, About you not working anymore or not taking on any more work or audition.
Lexi, make sure you take care of
Objection, Your Honor.
yourself.
Compound.
They're all
I'm
the same
leading.
subset.
She's trying to lay the foundation.
Thank
Just
you.
let her lay the foundation, Camille. We just want to get to
was
lunch at this
angry
point.
with me for working. I had finished my job and I needed to eventually find another job, meaning a movie, to work on. And he was furious at me for, he found, we call them sides. They're just pieces of an audition, pages. And he found something that had been sent to me to consider auditioning for. And he blew up at me for, I think what he said to me is that I didn't
Oh, she
tell
fixed
him
it. She fixed
that I
the
didn't ask
objection
him,
to speculative in
and
real
that
time. Good.
because he didn't know about that audition that I hadn't done yet, that I had been hiding it, and was furious at me. I ended up not doing that audition, I believe. Well, there was a few, one or two in that time that I
So did you do it or did you not do it?
I did audition for it, and one or two that I didn't.
I'm so lost.
Going to ask you now
Help
to take
me.
a look at what is Defendant's Exhibit 310. Do you recognize?
Yes, we need
this
Channing Tatum to testify to save
email
today's train
from
wreck.
Mr.
I was riveted by Johnny Depp's testimony, even though there were parts I had
Yes,
questions about
so
and the
text.
timing was
Yeah,
hard.
I'm going to move.
But
for the
this-
addition
It's in evidence, 310.
Oh,
It's
okay.
already
They
in
have a big
evidence. You don't
redactions.
have to move it
So,
into evidence.
Please tell the jury.
What the fuck is, what
about
are we
this
looking at?
text and the context.
I have questions.
This was Johnny's response to me apologizing for having an audition.
Thank you. All right, now I'm going to stay in November of 2014.
Wait, when did we get to November? We were just in September,
Did there
October.
come a time that
Some of this can be
Mr.
leading, but
Depp
I'm really
told
glad they're
you
letting it
that
go because
he
we need the
understood
timeline.
that you
and Amber's not
were
giving it.
gonna accept any more jobs, that you were going to stop
I
working?
have no idea.
Well,
That's
Johnny said
totally
this
leading
to
as
me
fuck,
in,
but whatevs.
in an argument, in a fit of rage is the best way I can describe it.
No, that's
And
foundation.
Kind of alluded to
Hearsay.
me having agreed
Is who's talking.
to not work anymore, which
I
if
feel
you
her
don't know
frustrated
me,
about her career.
is
It's the most authenticity I feel from her is the frustration about her career. I feel like a lot of this is
I
authentic.
would agree to that. Although I did make concessions and gave up a lot of
Objection,
these
Your Honor,
fights.
hearsay.
No, it wasn't.
Overruled.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Please continue.
That's going to what she did.
So he reached out to other people and to me to that effect. Furious at me for taking meetings. There was one in particular I wanted one
Just
meeting I
refresh
wanted
it,
to take
the
because
stream.
it was a
It's not
project
blurry
in
on my end.
development with a sci-fi writer, and I remember I wanted to take that. These things were just they were just constant fights, but
But what were the things?
in between them, when things were good between Johnny and I, he would be,
But you're not
he would
answering the
word it to
question.
me like, I'm trying to look
Oh
out for you. You say that you don't want to be objectified. You're doing it to yourself.
Is that what he was saying?
At first it was because I dressed a certain way or had sex scenes, and then it just got more narrow and more narrow and more narrow what I could do without being the blame for why
Without
the
being the blame.
industry, Hollywood, the entertainment industry was putting me in a box and objectifying me.
This
So
feels authentic.
It became my fault. I mean, I believed it. I believed it. I adopted a lot of these changes myself, not because Johnny, said you have to
Adopted
do it
changes
this way,
myself.
but because of all the other things that he said and did, I eventually found myself making decisions about my own career, about how I dressed.
I would
how
like to
wore
see her
my hair,
testify this
how I
way the whole
presented,
time.
where my eyes were cast when I walked into a room.
This feels authentic to
And I
me.
believe those were my own decisions.
She's not getting pinched. Her face isn't
Amber, did there come a
snarling.
time in
Her frustration
November
over her
of
career is the first thing today that has felt
2014 that you
really, really
engaged in some
authentic.
Couples counseling with Dr. Cowan and you and Mr.
And
Depp?
that feels like her real frustration about her career.
Tempted to. I had stopped seeing my therapist at in 2014. I couldn't sustain seeing her and be in the relationship with Johnny, and I chose Johnny.
It's a very
Eventually,
It's a very good question.
Dr. Kipper introduced me to his close friend, Dr. Cowan.
How do you know they're friends?
And
Sorry, just
I met
random
with Dr.
question.
Cowan and agreed to
why is she saying Cowan?
let them share communication about my care, my treatment, both what I said to Cowan and what I said to Dr. Kipper, who had become my physician as well.
Okay.
He also put a nurse on me that would be my travel
Put
companion.
a nurse on me?
And that travel companion would keep tabs on me and report to
Oh,
Dr. Kipper.
to the
who
stalking.
reported
Ugh.
everything to Johnny.
Objection, hearsay. Calls for speculation.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay.
Are you going to move to strike it or
So
just let it
tell us
hang?
about the couples therapy in November 2014.
This goes to that obsessive control
Dr.
she's trying to talk
Cowan,
about.
This man
they
who
were all
was
tracking
friends with
her.
Kipper,
This
was
lines
treating
up with
me,
Dr. Hughes's testimony.
Agreed to see Johnny and I together.
Like they were her
And,
babysitters almost.
I don't know how many minutes of that went on before Johnny stormed out, knocked something off the table on his way out, and rolled a joint in the bathroom before storming out of the office, slamming the door.
Did you roll a joint in the bathroom? No, man.
All right, so I'm
didn't.
going to
I
take you
already
up
have them
to
rolled.
December of
We've switched to edibles now. It's
2014, and
fine.
specifically December 17,
might be in the jelly beans.
2014.
Sorry,
And I'm
I
going
just,
to ask you to
I've
take
lost
a-
it with
do
this
you-
testimony
what, if anything,
today.
do you
It's-
recall
I'm struggling.
of, an
The hearsay
incident with
objections
Mr.
have
Depp
lost me.
relating to
I need
Clive
lunch. I can't recover.
Barker?
And this is a lot of
He
leading,
was
but
the
whatever.
sci-fi writer that I liked. Well, fantasy sci-fi writer.
That I liked.
Um,
And that's okay to like things.
I
Don't be afraid to admit that you liked
really, I
a
kind of had a
writer.
dream project based on a book that I loved of this author.
What book?
He's just a weirdo genius artist, writer. And I had a meeting with him.
And some of these points feel
through
authentic to
another
me too.
director about a piece of property he wanted to make into a movie.
This is what she looks like when she's just
And
telling a story.
um,
And it's nice to see her just
I just
actually
remember
giving
we
info.
I believe we were at the ECB. It was in December of 2014 when Johnny found out that I had this meeting scheduled, and
I want to know the writer. I need more
furious
details.
at me, accused me of having this plan to sleep with this. He was mad that I was taking the meeting at this man's house, but the man was very ill, like terminally ill, and
Who?
not able to leave his bed or his home. He was under home care and very ill. And the person who was introducing us explained to me how we had to meet, and I did. And that was a big problem for Johnny. At first, it was that he was concerned about my safety, and I thought that was
Yeah, this part
sweet.
feels
And there
very
is
authentic.
something that's I thought was sweet and romantic about that, but combined with the drinking,
Camille's getting ready to something.
It was not very long before I was being accused of full on having this other plan to sleep with the writer in order to get this part that I was already being,
yes.
basically offered to develop. And it was just this, he switched from he was accusing me of having this ulterior motive with this director, the director having it with me, then with this writer. And the important thing I can try to get across in this moment is that nothing I said, no amount of explaining,
The important thing I can get across in this moment, across to who?
Agreeing to not go, nothing worked. Nothing changed. How mad he was at me and constantly telling me I had done something wrong to deserve what was happening. Until, of course, he takes it too far, hits me too hard, breaks too many things in the house, and then leaves, which was the pattern. And he would leave and not have to deal with the cleanup. He never had to deal with the cleanup. He never had to deal with the destruction or see me or the house that he had destroyed. He never had to deal with my face the next day. He would just go. I called it splitting. He just split. And eventually
He did leave.
I get an apology.
That feels
Some
authentic
kind,
too.
or I would get an offer to have him come over. He would offer to come over and talk or give me my peace or give me my goodbye.
Give me my peace.
And in many ways, I found myself accepting that, knowing it was kind of false pretense, because I too wanted to resolve it. I didn't want him to think I was sleeping with this sci-fi writer. I didn't want him to think that I was this slut he said I was all the time. I mean, part of me really wanted to believe that he didn't mean those things, and I wanted to get to that part of him that would tell me he didn't mean what he said and that he was acting this way because he was
I forgot
messed
what the
up,
question was, but here we
and
are.
the cycle would repeat, I suppose.
Was there any
I
physical
suppose.
violence on or around December
suppose.
17, 2014?
Yes is the answer to your question. I don't really remember what happened in that fight. I remember more afterwards. I remember how apologetic he was for it. I remember him telling me he took it too far. I remember him saying he'd never do it again. And I remember wanting to get to Christmas. Christmases are hard, probably for everyone. And I remember it was close enough to Christmas that I was tired. And I wanted to be in a I wanted to be in a kind, gentle, peaceful state for Christmas. I didn't want to go through a breakup at this time. I didn't want to, that's what I remember of that time.
Let's bring up Defendant's Exhibit 321.
She is, but Johnny Depp costing her jobs because he's controlling is different than costing her jobs because of what was said about her, which is the point in defamation.
This is on
But some of the controlling stuff does feel authentic when she's talking
2014.
about it. And we're in 2014 now.
Just a text message exchange between you and Mr. Depp.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendants 321.
Any objection?
Depends
So,
on if
Your
there's
Honor,
hearsay in
just a
it.
quick minute.
She would like to look at it, which is fair. So,
Your Honor, no objection.
All right, 321 in evidence.
Woohoo!
Publish it, please.
I was worried. I mean, they've got to be just about ready to break for lunch. The jury has to be
Amber, I'm
exhausted.
just going to turn your attention to this. This is an email exchange between you and Mr. Depp, and he says, I am truly sorry to have upset you to the degree that I have. I couldn't be more
Again,
sorry
Steve and
for
Slim are
yet
their
again
nicknames for each
ruining your
other.
day.
That's why you'll see that.
I do, of course, take your generosity, your selflessness, your affection, and your sweet doting deeply into my heart, and I think that I've been reciprocal. Agony is never the answer to any equation or occasion, nor is rage. Please know that my apology is sincere and solid, and as
So
stupid
Clive
as it
Barker?
sounds, I hope your meeting with Clive Barker is excellent. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, and then you respond, thank you for your words, and you indicate you just left Betty Sue's, that's his mother?
Yes. And
And
I then had a
we binged.
glass of wine with my former agent,
Thanks,
Megan.
everybody.
Okay.
That afterwards, she encouraged.
That's
Objection,
hearsay.
hearsay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, and
She's
you can
like-
take that down. Let's bring up 325.
She probably encouraged you to
325,
leave.
please.
But if they're going to offer it for effect on the hearer, like did her encouraging you to leave change something, they would have to lay the foundation for that. I don't think they're going to lay the foundation for that. But they are getting into these emails again, showing this pattern of contrition to go along with their perception of this case, or their
And this is an
position of the
email
case
exchange
was
the following day, 12/18/2014.
that
Is that correct?
he was obsessive and
Yes.
controlling,
Okay, Your Honor, I
and
move the admission
that's
of
abusive.
defendants 325.
So even if they don't believe the physical
It's already
abuse,
in- Oh, it's already in, Your Honor.
maybe
My
not,
apologies.
maybe not
We'll get that figured out
defamation
at lunch.
if they believe that there's other abuse here. So that's
It's
why
already in,
It's
so.
been in evidence. Does anybody over there have the list of evidence that's already in evidence? Okay, we're making sure.
Ours indicates it is. It's in.
It's in evidence.
Without redactions, Your Honor.
It is. It
So-
was redacted. I don't know.
There-
what it was redacted to.
The redactions don't,
they're arguing over whether the bit
Is
of
that-
evidence
that's
is in
how it is in
redacted or not
evidence?
redacted,
Mr. Murphy?
and how it is in evidence.
We can check. We'll check our copy.
thank you.
Because Johnny Depp's team is saying the redacted version's in evidence. Amber Heard's team is saying the non-redacted. Redacted means they take out a certain bit of information that the jury shouldn't see. And that is actually an important point. If something's redacted, they need to know
It's fine,
which
Your Honor. We've confirmed.
bits in evidence,
Thank you.
redacted or unredacted. And the judge is getting annoyed with this evidentiary bullshit. You could hear her say, doesn't anyone over on your side have a list of the evidence? So the
Thank
judge
you.
is getting frustrated with the slogging of today. We're not going to get through. I don't think we're going to get through all of Amber Heard's directs. We're not even to them getting married yet, and we're not up to Australia yet. And so
You can't.
we're
see
still
on
in
your screen?
2014.
All right, we'll take care of
And-
that during the break. If you could just share it there. Oh, get it? Okay.
We
thank
see
you.
it.
All right, good.
Okay, thank you. So this is from Mr. Depp, right? Says it's a way, I've let it go too far, went too far. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
I always regret it when I jump, or worse, when you jump. I don't want to be conditioned to continue that behavior. Therefore, I'll put in heavy work with shrink. What is your understanding of what he's referring to as shrink.
That calls for speculation.
Psychologist.
Objection calls for speculation.
Did you have an understanding of what he meant?
Yes, I knew exactly what he meant.
Was it based
And
on
what do
something
you
other
mean?
than speculation?
Shrink is shrink.
What did he call shrink?
Johnny called shrinks, meaning of psychologist, therapist.
He called shrinks
Shrink.
shrinks.
Okay.
He called shrinks. Great.
I'm sorry for being less for your disappointment in me. For my behavior, I'm a fucking savage. You see that?
Yes.
All right. Gonna lose that. The devil is all around, right?
Why does it
Now,
sound like song
You
lyrics?
respond to this. And of course, before you go there, and he says, I am well aware I should have been bigger at
Thank
the
you, Granny.
moment and that it will never again manifest in negative experiences. It can be done. What a killer concept to visualize. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you respond,
What they
I
should
love you.
ask
I miss you already.
is-
Correct?
How did this
That's right.
impact you?
And
Not what did you think he meant?
what, if
How did this
anything, is that
impact
in-
you?
consistent with
This
the
is very
cycle that you
leading.
have described?
How is this consistent with
Well,
what you've described? Is so
The
fucking
language,
leading.
He used after particularly violent episodes was savage, monster, devil.
They found
And so
emotion.
we ended up both calling his other side, the side of Johnny that would do and say unbelievably horrible things. It was very different from the other Johnny. That was, in my opinion, exact opposite.
What did you call the other side? Because you
And
dropped
this
that
is
whole sentence.
typical of the apologies that I would get when he took it too far physically.
Ah.
I was encouraged because I thought it meant he understood that he could really hurt me. Sometimes I didn't think he understood how much he could hurt me physically. I mean, so after this,
That's odd after all her testimony that all of his hits didn't hurt. It's just, it's incongruous
I had
for me.
a visible bruise. I don't remember where, but I remember what other people.
Really?
Well, I can't say that what they said. So,
I remember what other people said to me. I had a
Anyway,
bruise. I don't remember where.
and I, in these fights, would try to stand up for myself. By December 2014, I was pushing back. I'd push him off of me. I'd try to hit his hands away. I tried to always get back up, which sometimes, not sometimes, almost always made it worse. Always seemed to provoke him. But I tried. And worse, I would yell at him. I'd scream at him. I'd call him ugly names. So ashamed of the names we'd call each other. It was awful.
I believe that
It was
too.
awful. We both
I believe
got
that
into
too.
that pattern. It was so, I felt so angry that this was happening to me, and it just felt
I
so
believe that too.
unfair. It felt like nothing I could do. Felt like nothing I could do would change the sobriety patterns. Felt like nothing I could do would stand up for him, and nothing I did made him stop hitting me. Nothing. So, I tried for over a year, maybe two, of just not responding physically, not responding verbally, just staring at him. I tried to freeze. I tried to go to a different place. I would try then lashing out verbally. I would try to threaten that if he hit me again, that I would call the police. Police were called several times, but I tried to do everything. I even threatened to leave him, and tried to leave him, and nothing was working. And I think by this point in our relationship, we're both saying awful things to each other, screaming at each other, and unfortunately, when Johnny would start hitting me,
Pattern
he just
of
went.
storytelling, I believed
I'll
everything she
describe
just
it.
said. She started talking really fast about
this
their
might
mutual
be a
fighting
good-
together.
Okay.
Time for the lunch break.
I believed
We'll go-
every
ladies
bit
and
of that
gentlemen, we'll
before
go ahead and take
lunch.
our lunch break at this time until 2:00. Please do not discuss the case or do any outside research, okay? Thank you.
I believe, see her pattern of telling that there were no interruptions, there were no stops and starts, there were no staggering. That was a very fluid bit of testimony there at the end from her about how they would mutually fight, how she would scream and yell back. That all felt like we had finally gotten into her actually telling
Again,
what
Mary, just don't
happened.
discuss your testimony with anybody this time, okay? All right, thank you. So 2:00? All right,
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lawyers, take your rules of evidence to lunch with you and take a look and figure out what your hearsay objections are. Let's get it back together, reconvene here in an hour. Everybody get a Snickers, and bring your A game after lunch, because otherwise this is going to take for fucking ever. But I absolutely feel like the end was where we see Amber Heard's actual testimony, the actual recitation of what she believed. Her pace picked up. It was this, it was that. It was very fluid. There weren't start and stops. And her face didn't have the same like tightness to it. I really believed that testimony. Her testimony has shifted quite a lot. Johnny Depp's testimony felt very consistent, except, I mean, there were times he was snarky, but it felt like his pattern of speech was the same throughout his testimony, sometimes wandering, sometimes up and down, but his pattern of speaking was the same. Her pattern of speech and storytelling has changed from dropping sentences and it starts and stops. And then when she got into just this last bit, it felt very fluid. And I really do believe when she's talking about the things we called each other were horrible, it's embarrassing. I believe all of that. I really do. So that end testimony, I think, is more of what we get when we see Amber Heard fluidly remembering and telling what she saw. I believe that they fought like that. We've heard it on the audio. So we heard all of that on the audio. Whether the jury will find that mutual screaming as abuse, I don't know. So we've got an hour until lunch. I'm going to go through as many super chats as I can. There is a stream for after lunch that this will pop you into, but it'll also be in the chat that's already set up on my channel. If you have not done the YouTube things, go ahead and like and subscribe. I mean, we're at 282,000. Thanks, y'all. We've had over 60,000 here with us today. Thank you for supporting independent creators. Really, this is what I do. I lawyer for 17 years, but this is what I do. So I am going to get to as many questions as I can. If super chats aren't questions, I will try to bring them up. If I do not get to them, I apologize. Gabby said, you'd think if the beatings were nonstop, like she described, she'd have more evidence. And I think the jury might end up feeling that way as well. And that's the thing when she's told that she is constantly being assaulted by him, and that constant assault has deeply impacted her, and he never had to pick up the damage. He never had to see what he did. And she said, he never had to see my face the next day. Well, if you want him to see your face the next day, did you take pictures? Did you not? And that's going to come up in cross-examination. So with all of that, we're going to see that come up in cross. We're not going to get there this week though. And the court is dark next week. And that is going to be a problem. So I'm going to get to as many questions as I can before we have to switch over streams. And again, thank you. I'm just appalled with the hearsay issues that happened this morning. Just absolutely appalled. Yes, Gen VP, slow mode is going to apply while we have over 50,000 people in the chat. Otherwise, no one can keep up, including myself. I am dyslexic and ADHD, so I need to be able to keep up. So that is why slow mode is on, because otherwise I honestly can't answer questions because I cannot keep up. So with that, let us get into it. Thank you to the moderators. A huge thank you to the moderators. We do have some chat rules here because it's what helps me as a creator, but also keeps the Law Nerd community rolling right along, being a community where we have conversation without the fuckery. Sassiness, yeah, pure fuckery now. Why would he bring this to court if he did hit her even once? He knows that that's all it would take is for one person to admit they saw him hit her. His case would be over. Yeah, I think he wanted his side of the story out. Even if the jury finds that he was abusive through verbal or emotional manipulative control abuse, he wanted his story out, and his story is out. His story is out. And I think her story next to his, it's hard to not compare everything she said back to him and back to Dr. Curry. It's a struggle. It's a struggle for sure. It shoves and ropes. Even better analogy for the relationship. Love you. Just started watching. Well, watch time is all we need. You don't feel that you have to super chat. Thank your support from being here and subscribing is absolutely what helps this channel grow. So thank you for all of that support. Let us see what we can do. Good job on the BBC interview, Emily. Thank you. I was on BBC TV last night. I have another TV interview tomorrow. We've been doing some legal commentary all around the interwebs and traditional media with this. No one that's been taking cocaine all day just passes out on the spot, cross legs. And this is why Johnny Depp talked so much in his testimony about being on the nod from the opiates that he was taking, the prescription drugs. He said very clearly, I was addicted to prescription medication. He detailed it, thoroughly detailed it. And she's trying to attribute that to other stuff. So it is hard. It is hard. So thank you guys for sharing your perspectives. If there aren't questions in the chat, I will try to pull them up and not get to the questions. So we will see. I will go around the internet and look to see what her statements are looking like. First super chat ever, but her tone, words, and facial expressions don't line up. It's been hard to watch. And for those of you that are like, it feels off, it feels off. So thank you, Elizabeth, but it feels off. Would JD's team be allowed to bring in potential movie quotes? Yes, if it's direct. There's ways that they can do that, but there also has to be foundation laid for some of those things, but they can also cross-examine her about it. I think they're going to get into some deep stuff. So they're trying to make her look innocent. They're going to get into more deep stuff today. Because again, we haven't gotten to their marriage and we haven't gotten into Australia. Can Depp add any witnesses like his kids? Not if they're not already on the witness list, not if they've not already been deposed. No, it would be very, very difficult to bring a rebuttal witness that's never been disclosed. I also don't think it would help dragging his kids into this. Heard's team is trying to paint Depp as vindictive and obsessive, and dragging his kids into this, I think, would not play well. So they haven't asked her yet why she was taking these photos. They got into it a little today, that she felt like nobody believed her and his team didn't believe her, but they didn't really get into the recordings too much. Can you make the feed as large? I will always try to make it as large as possible. Didn't Amber Heard say that Coke JD was very different from alcohol JD, very different from Quaaludes JD? Yes, she did. And yes, I also have questions. Passed out has lost all meaning. Fair. All of these pics and none. I mean, it's fair. She said he was vomiting in his sleep constantly. We're not seeing that. I find it odd that out of such terrible things she claims he did, she seems the most upset that he said she was a mistake. I mean, she definitely was the most upset about being called an embarrassment, it seemed. Thank you so much for the compliments. We'll always take them. Yeah, she was definitely talking about the kids quite a lot. Do you think the UK courts may have viewed this case differently if they heard Dr. Curry? I don't know. That wasn't the role of the UK court. So Dr. Curry's testimony about why Amber Heard might be motivated to lie, or why she might believe what she's saying, or why explaining her behavior isn't relevant for whether the Sun UK had reason to believe Amber Heard to the point that their headline was non-defamatory because she made these statements to them. So it wasn't really relevant to their inquiry, which is a different inquiry than here. If she's found liable of defamation, can she appeal? She can appeal. I don't think her attorneys are incompetent. I think they're a bit bumbling, but we're not at incompetence. And it's a very, very hard standard to show ineffective assistance of counsel. And in a civil case, it's not going to fly because she got to pick her attorneys. She got to pay for them. Why didn't these allegations come up on Johnny's cross? Probably because they didn't want him to have an opportunity to explain them. Said burden of proof and talk with hubby. This about our HOA board doing shady mess. Watch your channel and trial is bringing out the law nerd in me. And he was like, burden of proof. Where did you learn that? EDB is teaching us about burden of proof and non-responsive. So when Elaine's getting into a question and then Amber wanders far afield, the objection to non-responsive means that Amber Heard is not responding to the question that was asked. Hey, what did you do on Tuesday? Oh my God. So when I was 7, I had a pony, and that's non-responsive. I asked you about what you did on Tuesday. I use it with my kids all the time. I'm like, objection, non-responsive. What happened at school today? I'm bored. Objection, non-responsive. What happened at school today? Why wouldn't Johnny Depp's team use Amber's ex as a witness? They might not have been able to subpoena her. I don't know if she's been deposed. They might just use a police report if they have it. So it's disturbing to think that she's lying, giving the horrible accusations. It is very hard. Umbridge hasn't talked back when JD teams objects to questions today. She started to at the end. She's leaving way too many things on the. She definitely would jump in the middle of her answers. There would be like skits. She would skip or skitter over things. So that's very interesting. Amber was totally scripted word for word from the talented Mr. Ripley. Is that acceptable? It'll only fly. It will only not fly if it's pointed out in court. But the internet will run with that. And again, this trial has 2 points: the court of public opinion and the court of law. There are 2 purposes here. So she stated that he abused her when drunk, but then she accepted cases of wine as an apology from him. Yep, that's what she said. When do they do rebuttal? After Amber Heard rests her cases when rebuttal comes. And this case has been going on since 2019. They knew this was coming. They knew it was going to trial. So they knew that this was coming. You know, Isaac of the trial, the Isaac participating in this trial, the Isaac. Yeah, it was funny. Isaac, you've met him. It was very interesting seeing her turn to the jury and being like, you met him. Will her lawyers cross her on why she dated? They might. She's going to move the timeline, but they might bring up the video of her going up and down the elevator because they're trying to say he's paranoid. He's paranoid. He's obsessive. He's accusing me of cheating. And so they're going to bring up this elevator footage and be like, but were you? Is he accusing you of cheating, or were you cheating and he's calling you out on it? That is Johnny Depp's team to do. Does anyone else feel like of course I said no, and the humility is really being poured on thick for someone who left feces on the bed as a joke? I mean, of course I said no to these presents. She's trying to show that she wasn't after him for money and that she's not in this for money, because she knows it's going to come up why she didn't donate the divorce settlement. And she knows it's going to come up that that they are saying that she was motivated by money. So that is why, congratulations on your master's. That is why I think she's trying to downplay. Of course I didn't take his money. Of course I didn't want these gifts. Of course. A horse is a horse, of course, is what they're going to say on rebuttal. Question, I don't understand why they keep pushing, the whole look at this addict passed out angle. We've already seen the drugs and alcohol. What's the point? Part of this is what Amber Heard wants to say on the stand. Johnny Depp got his time. This is her time. She wants to make her rebuttal. These are things that I'm sure she's telling her lawyers she wants in. And part of this is them allowing her and facilitating her to tell her story. She is going to have her moment. And these are the photos she wants to put in. She wants the world to see Johnny Depp the way that she sees Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp wants the world to see, I think, what happened to him behind closed doors. I didn't get the sense that Johnny Depp wanted the world to understand who Amber Heard was behind closed doors. I think Johnny Depp wanted the world to see what he had been through. Amber Heard wants the world to see how she sees Johnny Depp. So this is all very still focused on him, it feels to me. And that's why the pictures with the melted ice cream, that's why the pictures of him passed out. See, I'm telling the truth. He can't remember. He doesn't know. He passed out. But the sting is out of it because he already said, yes, I was taking more prescription painkillers than I should. I was in pain. I was working 17-hour days. I would pass out. I would be on the nod. I would fall asleep. I would take, Roxycodone and fall asleep. And that's consistent with all of this, but also why photograph it? Do you think Umbridge helping Amber keep her story straight bit them in the butt on cross? I think it will. And I think the jury will see it because she's telling Amber how to testify. It's very strange to watch. Shout out to my best friend, Lexi. Shout out, Lexi. I try to get to them as much as I can. Isn't the film with Billy Bob soft porn prawn? I don't know. I have no idea what the film is with Billy Bob. So weird for your abuser to invite your BFF, to live with you. Her whole friend group was living with them. So odd, no recordings of her wanting to work. We don't see any of those fights, but I don't doubt that they had conversations about her career. I really don't. The parts about the career felt authentic, and he had issues with her ambition, and she's ambitious. Those things felt authentic when she was saying he's holding me back. I believe that she believes that. Absolutely. But does the judge have to abstain from trial coverage? No. The judge probably does, but the judge doesn't have to. But the judge shouldn't. I'm sure the judge is exhausted after dealing with this all day. The judge doesn't have to abstain from trial coverage. The judge calls what happens in court. Judges are practiced at being neutral. They're not advocates. They're here to call for each side. But also at the end of a long day, this judge wants nothing else to do with these attorneys or this trial at all. Afterwards, and judges shouldn't look at what the media is saying about them because that can also make them unhappy. And we saw that with the judge in the Rittenhouse case a little bit from the stand or from the bench. You could see him being a little annoyed by some of the media coverage and the media giving him a hard time about ordering lunch or whatever. Could letting the lawyer lead like this be a tactic? I think they're just trying to get through it and orient it to time. And if the time is appropriate, they're letting it go. So I think that's why. So we've all been shouting at the screen. We've all been shouting at the screen. I feel like Elwood's in bed throwing chocolate at the TV, shouting, "Liar!" I sent him my outfits. Why aren't there screenshots of those conversations? I don't know. She was in Magic Mike XXL in 2015, not exactly the ultra conservative role she was talking about. I mean, she framed it as limited makeup, no makeup. There are We Have Questions shirts. I can look at ones with a gavel. They're in the Lawnard shop. Can aides advise Depp's attorneys of social media if they want to? They might not change their strategy because of it, but they can. Is there one witness here to back her claims? I don't know. We'll see. If it's only her therapist, it's going to be very hard for her because that's all things she self-reported to them. So if it's only her therapist, if it's only her therapist, that will be very confusing. Her presentation of events is very odd. All of us today. People who precursor or follow with, to be honest, she said that a lot. She also tried to narrate to the jury, like, isn't it odd? Like telling them how to frame it, which is weird. Yeah, the sweater was definitely softer. I wonder if the jury will even notice. They might not. So they might not clock it. They might clock it. It's giving Disney princess acting abilities. Oh dear. The more she scoffs and sighs and huffs. And that's the thing. When she got into her at the end, talking about how they were fighting together, there were no scoffs, there were no huffs, there were no pauses. It was very, very fluid. And that's very interesting. How hard is it to prove perjury? Very hard, Christine. And if we see anything that gets into that territory, I will address it then. I've actually done a criminal perjury trial with something coming out of a civil case. You have to have a lot of evidence to prove that it's not like the questions have to be the same. You have to be very pinned down. It can't be like, oh, well, the question was framed a little different, so there's wiggle room. It has to be very, very hard and fast. So what could Johnny Depp's team strategy be by not speaking up? Well, they knew that they were going to start speaking up later, and we saw that. So here's the very flowery language Dr. Curry was talking about, which is why Dr. Curry was such a powerful witness for Depp. Do you think the attempts to make Amber seem completely innocent and naive come across as overacting? They could. I think it comes across as more real when you admit your part. And Johnny Depp did that. Yes, I was taking too much. Yes, I was doing this. But yes, she was doing this. And I think that comes across more powerfully. But we'll see at the end of the day what they think. All right, I'm going to try to get to some of these that have questions just specifically, or we're never getting to lunch, or we're never going to be able to switch over the stream to the afternoon. So let me go ahead and make that should I make that public? Yes. So now it's available. Question: how will Johnny Depp's lawyer deal with the abuse allegations, especially the essay? They are going to have to, thank you for the Mother's Day wishes. They are going to have to talk about it. They're saying that she's lying, and they're going to have to question her about it on cross-examination without it feeling like they're bullying her. So that is going to have to happen in a very careful way. But I think it's why Camille Vasquez, Depp's attorney, is already questioning her in this way, because they're setting up for cross-examination and they're blocking some of the stuff that shouldn't come in. And I think that's appropriate for them to do. So I'm looking for super chats just with questions, and that's the best I can. Can you elaborate on what's considered hearsay? Briefly, I feel like we need a separate video on hearsay, which I'll do a different time. But hearsay is trying to introduce something someone else, not the witness said, for the truth, to prove something happened. And this judge rules very broadly on hearsay and has kept out almost anything a third party has said to these individuals. I don't always agree with the judge. There are lots of exceptions to hearsay where it's like, yes, it is what was said by a third party, but it's not being offered for the truth, and therefore it can come in. This judge is not playing with hearsay objections at all. She's like, someone else said it, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. And that can be frustrating for the attorneys, but they need to then find other ways to get this evidence in if it's appropriate evidence to get in. And they need to fight for that with the judge by saying, this is why these exceptions apply. It's coming in. I think the judge is being very fair on both sides. I think she's overbroad in her rulings, but she's been very, very consistent. So I think we saw a lot of answers that the female attorneys holding up the notepad so that things that aren't in evidence or things that are put up on the screens that aren't published to the jury don't end up out in the media. And I think they're protecting from photos being taken of that, which is fair because Depp's side or Heard's side kept putting things up and putting things up that aren't getting admitted, then aren't part for the jury, shouldn't also be available to the broader public because they're on the screen. Has her PR guy contacted YouTubers? I have no idea. I'm sure if he has, people will talk about it. We didn't get to DEFCON Red yet with the level of nonsense that we're seeing from the hearsay objections. They're going to have to pull it together over lunch and really try to figure out what they are doing. It's just wild. They are going to have to pull it together. Question, how much will she set back true DV victims? I hope that she doesn't, because I think that people will be able to see the difference between authentic testimony and this testimony in the appropriate context. I just worry that it gives abusers more room to say, which they already do, but more room to say, see, no one's going to believe you. How many times have you been totally surprised, disappointed by a jury's verdict? Not a ton. It's less than I've been like, I get why they did that. I'm generally not shocked by the things juries do when I go through all the evidence. I've been disappointed a few times, but I've also generally understood. I've never been completely flabbergasted. I've been more flabbergasted by hung juries when I'm like, really? Y'all couldn't get it together? So why didn't she invite JD to the party? I don't know. But they are setting up this controlling narrative. Can we use the side-by-side? When I can, I will use the side-by-side. But also Law and Crime does take down streams, and I'm mindful of their past behavior. Why do I enjoy Elaine reading the text? It's kind of funny. Her cadence is so off from the way we know Johnny Depp's cadence to be that it's pretty interesting. She talks like Elizabeth Holmes from The Dropout. There are moments where her voice definitely changes. I felt again at the very end before the break for lunch, we were getting into her true cadence. If you were cross-examining Amber Heard, would you want her to get upset or frustrated? Yes. Why or why not? I want the jury to be able to see real time the person that was seen on the audio. I wouldn't try to bait her. I would try to hold her to her answers. And if she got brazen with me, I would get a little more linear with her. So I think they want the jury to see what's on the audio, but the jury's also already heard the audio. So I think they shouldn't come in. I don't think they should come in looking like they're trying to piss her off. I think they should narrowly rein her in on her testimony and stay to it. And that will piss her off because we're already seeing it happen. So we'll see. You are welcome. I keep hearing about the talented Mr. Ripley stuff. I'll have to go look. Her comments at Holmes' wealth meant to turn off the jury. I don't think they're meant to turn off the jury. I think it was trying to explain, but she did light up when she talked about her engagement and her big engagement ring. Oh, interesting. Do you think Amber Heard will fire her lawyer? She can't. There's no way she can. She cannot. I think they will blame it on Johnny Depp's lawyers and be like, it's their fault. It's not my lawyer's fault. It's them being difficult. It's them being awful. It's the judge. I don't think she'll blame her lawyers. I think we talked about that one with the lawyers trying to block things. Have you seen Johnny Depp's drink? No. Everybody seems like they're drinking something in water bottles today. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Hydration, something. Sections of Amber's testimony seem to have been lifted. I will look for that today and address it top of the hour tomorrow. Library chic today, a little bit. Why is she always speaking to the jury as if she's an expert? I think she wants, personal opinion, I think she's checking with them to see how what she's saying landing. She cares very much, my perception, it seems that she cares very much about how she's being heard, understood, and how her testimony is landing with the jury. Like an expert witness whose job it is to teach the jury something, she is wanting to tell the jury her side. I felt that Johnny Depp was leaning on his attorney for support to tell his story because he wanted his story out. He wasn't looking for validation from the jury. He wasn't looking to see how they were taking it. He wanted to tell his story and was in tune with his lawyer to do that. This is very much, how are you reacting to me and how am I reacting to you? I don't know how they will feel about that. Did she open the door yesterday when she brought up her partner, Tasha? I think she opened the door for them to ask her about her previous history of abuse. I think the door has been opened for that. And the door being open means generally that's something that can be more prejudicial than helpful or probative. But if she opens the door to it, they can bring it in. And she said, I know it's not okay to hit somebody. I know that there's no coming back from that. And they're going to be able to get into her experience with that, I think. So we haven't even gotten to the wedding yet. So there's no way we're going to be done today. How does her lawyer not know the rules this far into a successful law career? These are lawyers who are used to doing depositions, and in depositions, you generally make the objections, but you don't have to respond to them because the evidence comes in, and then if it needs to be taken out later, it's taken out later. So you are making objections, but you're not responding in real time to objections. So I think this is just lawyers that are successful in civil litigation that settle most of their cases and don't go to trial a lot. This kind of response on your feet is difficult, but they should have known that this was very broad in hearsay rulings because it benefited them for the last 3 weeks. Does Amber's lawyer have more attitude than most? Not really, but there are definitely the moments of, Your Honor, I don't agree. That's not a legal grounds to respond to a hearsay objection. You don't agree is not the point. All of this seems like a bunch of crap. Where is any proof? Well, that's what the cross-examination is for, isn't it? To point out where there is proof. And with how much is being recorded, I think the jury is going to want to know where it is. You recorded everything. So where is it? You did all of this. So where is it? So where is the stuff, the picture and the evidence, the medical records? We'll see. Saying, I think I broke my nose is like saying, I think I had food poisoning. If it's happened, you know it. Lindsay, this is an excellent point. If anyone on that jury's broken their nose, they're going to be like, you would know. Emily, can this still be argued as dirty tactics for Amber Heard's team to be bad lawyers to this degree? I really think they're genuinely flustered. I do. I don't know if it's a tactic. Maybe it is. I can't imagine that it would be. Like, I can't see what the benefit is of maybe trying to make it look like Depp's team's beating up on her, but I just don't think it's good. Amber Heard's habit of micromanaging her team, I don't know. Used to directing them, Elaine can't control her. I don't know. That's possible. In a civil case, the client is really the one steering the ship. Can they ask her in cross if she wasn't referring to Depp in the op-ed? Who was she referring to? They can ask her that. I don't think that they will, unless she testifies, because the ACLU has made it very, very clear that she was talking about Depp. She was Seth Rogen's high school girlfriend in Pineapple Express. Oh, okay. I'll have to look. Thank you for the compliments. I haven't. I'm gonna have a list of movies I need to go back and watch. For sure. So I'm trying to get to questions. She was the teenage girlfriend. This is how far behind I am in the chat. Sorry, y'all. 2 times she said it didn't hurt. She said multiple times that every time when Depp hit her, it did not hurt. And then she changed it. Question: who are the passengers who saw this? We haven't seen testimony from any of them, and I don't think that we will. How do you feel a boot with your back turned away? I don't know how you determine it's a boot and how you don't describe the other feelings, the other sensations. It was, I felt a boot in my back. Well, how do you know it's a boot? And her booty calls on the internet is not embarrassing. I don't know what that's referring to. I just saw the question mark. I missed the beginning of trial. Does anyone else's testimony that we've already had corroborate this plane story? There's a lot of testimony from Depp's side that does not corroborate her version of events. She was leaving out, walking to the back of the plane. There's a lot that's left out of that plane story for sure. Back to the blank stare when they go to the bar. And that's interesting too, and the jury might see it. She doesn't look like she's still emotional when it takes a break. You need, the evidence, Elaine Merch, for sure. Her entire testimony, JD inserting worst thing a person could do. Amber Heard perfectly innocent. I think there's a lot of that going back and forth between the two. Does the jury know that Amber and her team didn't turn over metadata, and can that hurt her case? They don't know yet. They will know if there's a jury instruction granted over the issues with evidence. And yes, if the jury is told in a jury instruction, it will absolutely hurt her case. Absolutely hurt her case. Jurors aren't allowed to write things. They are allowed to take notes. They can take all the notes that they want. So yes, they are allowed to take notes. They're going to have to. They're going to absolutely have to take notes. If Depp's attorneys can show and prove that she lied, can she be criminally charged? It's very hard to criminally charge somebody for perjury. So being inconsistent is different than perjuring yourself. And if I see anything, we'll talk about it then. Would you be willing to make merch? Aussie Man has a series of objection marks. Not going to lie, I kind of want the hearsay asked and answered ones. I mean, maybe in general, but not necessarily specific to this trial. But maybe maybe can the jury direct where the winnings go? That's exactly their job. They get to direct who is liable for defamation and how much money they get, if anyone is. Can the jury agree that they were both abusive? They can. And if they agree they're both abusive, then everyone loses. No one defamed anyone. They absolutely can do that. It's a very real probability or possibility. The flight audios don't really provide any info. So what's the point of playing them? Possibly to embarrass Depp, possibly to say his version of events is not true. Does it seem like she's purposely channeling a Serena Waterford Handmaid's Tale wife vibe? I have no idea. But the chat might be able to say. Isn't Happy Hour anytime? Happy Hour is not listening to this trial right now. Why was she the only one with psych evals? Marissa, this is a fantastic question. I would love to tell you. She's the only one with psych evals because she is the one that put her mental health at issue here, saying that she has PTSD. So when she brought up the PTSD, then Johnny Depp's team was able to get the court to appoint a forensic evaluator to forensically evaluate her to evaluate that claim. So she is the one who put it at issue, and that is why she is the one that was evaluated. Johnny Depp said, I'm not going to fight you that I was an addict. I was an addict. I'm telling you I'm an addict. I'm not fighting you on this. So did Amber lose a bet with the Amish? I don't think she lost a bet. I think that was an intentional choice. She did record some of the verbal abuse. She did. Didn't Dr. Curry explain Amber's choice of words with her diagnosis? Yes, she did. And I think the jury will remember that. Does the jury get to see her deposition? No. They get to cross-examine her with her deposition, but the whole deposition transcript won't be entered into evidence. It's not appropriate evidence. If Amber is liable, can they go after her assets? That's a long way off, but that's part of the recovery process if they award her any money or if they award Depp any money. If people witnessed him kick her on a plane and other insane behavior, how could this be defamation? Well, if people witnessed her do all of this and find it's abusive, then the jury gets to decide it. So if it's witnessed, then they might find that it's abusive. And then if it is abusive, it's not defamation. And then Depp loses. Why aren't testimonies faceless? Seeing witnesses sways jury. Shouldn't it be facts only? If not, should multiple court body language experts aid the jury? The jury has to decide. This is how our system was set up. Our system was you have a right to confront those giving evidence against you, and people have a right to present a defense on their own behalf. So this is constitutionally established here in the US. And yes, a lot of jury trials are emotional. And yes, trying to emotionally sway a jury is part of a jury trial. How many jurors will be deliberating of the 7? 5. 5 will be deliberating. And I think there's 7 left. I don't know how many they started with. Why are they allowed to use pics with no metadata? Some of those pictures she's saying that she took, and then the defense will get to point out that they're not reliable. So that's why. Let me see if we can get to some more questions. Yesterday, Mr. Ripley. Today was the blackness in the eyes from Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It was very interesting the way she described that. Question, is it normal for abuse victim to show no emotion when they testify in court? Not in my experience. Need your expertise on the recent, I talked about, well, it depends which Maxwell motion. I talked about Juror 50. I haven't caught up with Maxwell since then, but it's without even a voice quake. It's odd to me. A lot of people who have been through, or victims of crime who've been through assaults, things like that, even years later, you will at least hear it in their voice when they talk about the emotion of that. And there's not a lot of that here, but she's sniffing and making faces as if she's feeling emotion, but I'm not also hearing it. Explain possible sanctions for Amber's text. I did that earlier. Jury instruction, monetary sanctions. Would this somehow influence the jury? All the objections they could. Question, is this judge just a saint? Yes. The judge has been very, very patient. Some judges would have absolutely lost their minds by now. Question, will the jury be able to ask the court why Johnny Depp's team kept objecting? No, they don't get any context. They just get to watch it play out. And at the end, they get stuck in a room together to decide it. So they don't get that information. Let me get to a few more questions, and then I am going to have to take a moment. Wanting sex, it was not like Johnny Depp at all, except when he constantly sexually assaulted me. Jack Reynolds, you bring up an excellent point. Also, he was going through a detox. It just feels inconsistent to me. He has ate her, but didn't want sex a lot. Agreed. It's odd. Why is she not talking about what she did wrong? She is, because she's not. I just joined Who's Winning. None of us are winning today. The evidence code is winning today. The evidence code has bludgeoned Amber Heard's legal team today. Does hearsay rules vary according to who's giving testimony? Oh my God, that's a much more complex answer than I think it's, or a much more complex question than I think it's intended to be. There are slightly different rules when you're getting to expert testimony than when you're getting to lay testimony or regular witness testimony. But generally, no, it doesn't like switch back and forth with sides. There are some special rules with experts, but generally, every witness, the hearsay rules are the same. The objections are the same. The foundation needed is the same, and the exceptions are the same. So experts are experts are special. Do you think Elaine is stalling so Amber is still on direct after the break next week? I think that they're struggling with the judge's rulings. I think that they're struggling with the judge's rulings for sure. I've been watching your live coverage religiously, but somehow missed the timeline of this trial. I've missed the timeline of this trial. When is it expected to be concluded? Before Labor Day, or no, before Memorial Day is what they said. Sorry, not September, the end of May. So before the end of May, but there's a break next week. So 2 weeks. Yeah, she's also done drugs, but doesn't understand. How do hallucinations as part of detox mean abuse? Don't know. What are the consequences of irritating the judge? The judge gets irritated. I know she doesn't do a ruling, but is there anything she can do? She can admonish the attorneys like, counsel, this is what we're doing. So I zoned out like 20 minutes ago. This has turned into excellent background noise. I zoned out too. Have you ever seen such a circus in a courtroom? I mean, not in this way, but we've seen some shit. Can the jury actually see that during her entire hysterics, they're closer to her than we are? They're sitting right there. Can Depp's team bring in new evidence on cross? They can bring up stuff they haven't brought up yet on cross, but not new in the sense that the defense doesn't know about it. Unless it's impeachment, and then it kind of slightly alters. But then they should know about it because Heard can tell them about it. What does it mean to overturn evidence? I've heard the judge mad at Amber. The judge is mad at Amber Heard's lawyers. Overruled means that the objection doesn't count and you can go on. Sustained means the objection is granted and you can't go on. And winning the objection means that Depp's team has successfully blocked Heard's team from keeping something out. She literally said she resolved to leave him and then joined Al-Anon all in one shot one weekend. Yeah, and then got married. Has Umbridge forgotten how to law? Maybe. Her testimony has lost zero recall of substance. It feels that way. It does. Amber, they brought me in to be the muffin, possibly. If stuff is blurry, I always suggest refreshing. And that would probably be later on. Question, what would you particularly like to see in cross? I would like to see it very methodical, going through the pictures, the recording. Why aren't there pictures of this? Why aren't there pictures of that? But also pointing through the inconsistent testimony, I think will be most powerful. Question, can she look at the jury like this? She can do whatever she wants. I mean, she can't do whatever she wants, but yes, she can. She absolutely can. Can the therapist testify? They can and they will. So yes. Could Johnny Depp's team be trying to bring out Amber Heard's anger? I think they're trying to disrupt the story a little bit. Thank you for telling me I've made it bearable. Today was rougher than I expected in the evidentiary sense, in the like slogging, painful sense. I have no idea about the drink, but I appreciate the point. Do you think it's a coincidence that upon being asked if he was drunk when defending Amber, her father once threatened to, I don't know that we know that. So I don't know if it's coincidence or not. Bruises last longer than the next day. They certainly do. Let's see. The answer is yes and a monologue. I mean, the yes and is the non-responsive part. Why didn't the defense subpoena her ex? Can they force her to come to court? Not if they didn't. And Johnny Depp's team might not have her under subpoena. I don't know. But if you're not under subpoena and you haven't been deposed, no, you can't. It's too late. The shit is out of the horse on that one. The time has passed. Can they discuss her face filler bruising on cross-examination? They can ask her to show her pics could be from that instead. They could ask her. They need to be able to back it up if she denies it in some way. So as an actor, her frustration about her career could feel real, but not because of JD. Not every audition is provocative. Actors love to externalize blame. That's a very good point. It's the only thing that felt authentic to me today. Can Amber Heard talk to her lawyers during the bye week? Not about her testimony. Can they discuss her testimony? No. They can discuss timing. Can I please set the foundation? Yes, please set the foundation for the love of God. Yes, me. Is this all still before the marriage? We're all still way before the marriage. And I am way behind on Super Chats. I'm going to get to a few more questions and then I've got to take a quick break. Why wouldn't the behavioral analysis come up on the stand and tell who is lying? The jury is the jury decides what the facts are. The jury decides what the truth are. Was Amber's sister deposed? I don't remember. I believe she's a witness. Johnny is saying but her, to the best of my memory, and it's been a long week, her sister didn't finish being deposed, Whitney. So Whitney was partially deposed and then had to stop the deposition. And then the deposition didn't resume and Heard's team would not make her available for further deposition. So she might not be able to testify because of that. So I think, yes, the fact that they keep winning the objections, so the objections aren't petty. I agree. I do have a lot of questions today. So thank you guys for your experiences. Johnny is saying he didn't put his hands on her. Amber is saying otherwise. This is confusing to you too. It's not confusing. I think this is where the jury has to decide what's abusive. Is the audio tapes enough for them to, will they just determine abuse based on the audio tapes that they have, based on the photos that they have, based on the stories that they hear? I don't know. They get to decide the facts. Amber Heard using movie quotes when testifying. Is it just me or does Amber Heard keep making Johnny's detox about her? She keeps making everything about her. He was the big bad wolf and Into the Woods. I didn't remember that. Having such a hard time following. Me too. Me too. Me too. So does the defense have to prove all three statements from the op-ed are false in order to have the jury find for the defendant? That's a great question. No, they can find one of the statements defamatory and not the other two. They could find the headline defamatory. They could find the republication of it defamatory. There are three claims. They don't have to find all three. They have to all agree that one of those claims is defamatory if they want to award something to Johnny Depp. They don't have to find all three. So yes, the claims can't be unanimous. So, all right, I'm going to do two more questions and then I have to go. If I missed your super chat, apologies. We just have timing and we have to switch streams. Question: when Amber Heard is staring at the jury during sidebar, would that ever be considered jury intimidation? No. She's not doing anything menacing. She's not saying anything. Depp's team is sitting there looking at her, the ones that aren't up at sidebar. So no, jury intimidation gets into actually threatening jurors, following jurors, things like that. If it's a jury, is the jury provided the rules of evidence? No, they're not. They have to just sit there and watch the circus happen and not ask questions. Must the jury focus on only the entire relationship? As a juror, I would dismiss incidents prior to the marriage and focus only on the vows. They get to decide what's considered abusive. Depp's team is trying to build a foundation that it was all a lie. So then the reporting the TRO was a lie. So then everything's a lie. If Amber Heard wanted to clear her name, she wouldn't want to submit evidence. Can they question her about what she has submitted? Yes, they can. Me, one more question. Me, 10 more questions. Wouldn't the judge have to inform the jury they didn't turn over the metadata? Yes, at the end. Isn't it strange that Amber Heard tries to cry when being asked about what Johnny did? Yes. Question: can they bring the expert back to explain how triangulation and gaslighting? Yes, I think we will see Dr. Curry coming back on rebuttal, and I think it will be very, very strong for them. Can Jay-Z's attorney bring up the release date of the makeup palette only if the makeup palette comes up? We still haven't gotten into how she carried a palette her entire relationship to cover bruises. We haven't gotten into the Goodbye Earl lyrics of this whole thing yet. Can her testimony be thrown out if she continues to speak on things out of scope? No, they would. The judge would never do that. They'll just keep granting the objections and moving to strike the answer. Did she avoid her evidence on purpose? I have no idea why her legal team made that choice. Question: is her legal team only working with what she says? Yes, that's their job. Their job is to tell her story. Question: funny that all the pics are drunk, drugs passed out, not drunk, drugs beaten. I think so too. And with that, y'all, thank you for your super chats. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your support. We are popping over to the afternoon stream. It is populated for you. It is linked right here, so you can hop right over there. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. I will see you in just a few minutes. Whew, we're going to be back after lunch, and I have a sense it's going to be a doozy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. I will see you around the interwebs at the Emily D. Baker. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.